trolling Senator Elizabeth Warren as a snake, and in post after post, labeling Mayor Pete Buttigieg a rat. Two victims of this tell CNN they were so afraid of the online attacks they faced, they don't even want us to describe the circumstances for fear it would start up again. They both just questioned the politics of Bernie Sanders in a public setting, and their personal lives were exposed and attacked.
Well, just what Nick said, I think that's right. I mean, there is no Democratic establishment anymore. There's not even a Democratic Party anymore. The Democratic Party is a meaningless notion that the party, like the Republican Party, has been hollowed out and privatized to a large extent. There are Democratic elites, and so when we're talking about the Democratic establishment, we're really talking about a bunch of people that Nick also knows well, which really means Democratic donors.
This is the most important election in the history of our country.
This election is the most important in the modern history of this country.
The election in 2020, without hyperbole, is going to be the most important election this country has undergone in over 100 years. Not a joke.
This November's elections are more important than any I can remember in my lifetime, and that includes when I was on the ballot.
There are just 8 days left in what is the most important election of our lifetime.
Where did you guys come to a conclusion about why Clinton had such a hard time just owning that she did something wrong with the email server?
You know, I know that Russia and other forces would love us to have a debate. This is exactly what they want. They want us to have a debate about the internal structure of Hillary's campaign, what's true, what's not true. And I'm just not going to play that. I'm sorry.
We came, we saw, we died.
I was the CIA director. We lied, we cheated, we stole. It's like we had entire training courses. It reminds you of the glory of the American experiment.
You know, people have said, if you look at, for example, the heat that ended up around the bend the knee, Colin Kaepernick. Mm-hmm. Many smart people have said it actually was not a thing. The Russian bots started taking out. Yes.
But I saw my mom. My mom is the strongest woman I know.
She should be running.
This is not about.
If you're like me, one of the millions suffering from pain caused by migraine, Nurtec ODT may help. It's the only medication that can treat a migraine when it strikes and prevent migraine attacks.
Trump and the Republicans lose on Tuesday, and if they lose badly, it's not going to be because of the left, whatever that means. It's not because of the 50 Antifa black mask guys who roam around the United States breaking windows and committing mayhem, most of whom are probably paid police informers.
Most of whom are probably paid police informers.
Rudy Giuliani, there's only three things he mentioned in a sentence, a noun and a verb and 9/11. I mean...
I'm going to try to get through this. Thank you for what you did 3 years ago today.
And I went to Wall Street in December of 2007, before the big crash that we had, and I basically said, cut it out.
And now I want to hand it over to the president of Ukraine, who has as much courage as he has determination. Ladies and gentlemen, President Putin. Look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden.
This version of Biden, intellectually, analytically, is the best Biden ever.
He is sharp, intensely probing, and detail-oriented and focused.
They're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country.
I can't do it.
citizens. Let me turn this down just a little bit. I've been having camera problems this morning. So thank you for your patience. And thank you for joining me again for episode 153 of the Politics Show. I realized the other day, I really haven't done that many shows. Less than 200 at this point. So I'm still plugging along. I'm still in the building phase. I feel like I'm not, as big of a channel as some of my peers in the space, but I'm the little engine that could. I'm puffing along. Literally puffing along. So I hope you had a good week. There's a lot of stories to speak of. A lot of stuff going on. So much so that it can be confusing or difficult to keep up with everything. I try to cover as much as I can every week, at least the most relevant things going on. And, even I 2 hours a week, I can only cram so much stuff in to talk about during this show. So hopefully I'm prioritizing correctly, and I've got a lot of good content for you today. The empire continues to sputter along, but we are starting to see some cracks. And the cracks are being hidden, but I do feel like they're deepening. And once the public has a full picture of what's actually going on, there is going to be a backlash, I believe. And you see it with things like the Iran war, for example. They're totally using accounting tricks to hide the amount of troops that have passed. But before we get too far into this, I'm just going to double check my settings, make sure everything is kosher. Point my camera down a little bit further. Hopefully that's a little bit better. And it doesn't keep shorting out on me. But let's start things off with what I like to call, well, it's not a segment yet, but I wrote down in my notes, this week in American violence. America, fuck yeah! So the first thing I want to discuss with you today is a recent shooting that occurred in Twin Falls, Idaho, at an In-N-Out Burger. And this one came up on my radar. I mean, it's on everyone's radar at this point, but I have relatives in this town. So as soon as I heard about this, I went, oh, wow, this is a small town. There's definitely a potential that one of my relatives was at this restaurant when this happened. They weren't, thankfully. But let's run through this real quick, what happened, because this is the most recent random act of senseless violence that Americans are dealing with. And we'll talk a little bit more about the policy implications and all that, but let's go through the article real quick. So we will start here. This is from the nice folks at CNN. Multiple people were killed and others were injured in a shooting Saturday afternoon at an In-N-Out in Twin Falls, Idaho, according to officials. The shooter is dead, says Josh Palmer, the city's public information officer, and all shelter-in-place orders have been lifted. We believe that the threat to the community is over, Twin Falls Police Chief Matthew Hicks told reporters Saturday evening. We're working to try to ascertain his identity and the motivations behind that. So they haven't even released the guy's identity yet, interestingly enough. Dwayne Rubink, man, I bet that guy got teased in school. Hey, Rubink, why don't you come over here and Rubink this? Oh. Chief of the neighboring Jerome Police Department told CNN, it appears there was one shooter who's deceased from self-inflicted gunshot. The scene is under investigation, he said. So the shooter killed himself? It kind of makes you wonder why they didn't go with that narrative in the Charlie Kirk thing, doesn't it? No, the shooter killed himself. Because, dead men tell no tales. But this Tyler Robinson thing, is starting to look a little shaky. We're going to get into that a little bit later today. But let's keep going. Twin Falls authorities have not provided the exact number of fatalities, but earlier told CNN at least 3 people had been killed. It's unclear if the shooter was included in that initial number. An In-N-Out employee was almost among those killed. In-N-Out Burger President Lindsey Snyder said in a statement, "My heart is broken, my chest is heavy, my eyes burn from the tears I've shed," Snyder wrote. "We lost one of our beautiful associates tonight. She was taking care of our most important asset, our customers, and her life was taken by a disgusting human who doesn't value the lives of others or his own." Now, while I believe that is true, this is the environment that the United States has kind of created for ourselves. We are a violent, thuggish, disgusting empire everywhere else in the world. And I don't think that the people of this country are that way, because the people of this country consistently vote against anything that even resembles empire, which is one of the reasons Donald Trump is president right now. But thankfully, like I said earlier about the cracks, the masks are coming off, and I'm going to go into the kind of boomerang effect that this is a result of in a minute here, but let me finish this off. So, Snyder said the shooter fired both on and off the property of In-N-Out location and ended his life shortly after he took the precious lives of our associate and customers, innocent people who never saw it coming. Saturday's shooting unfolded in one of Twin Falls' busiest commercial areas, a stretch of the city's north side filled with hotels, national retailers, restaurants that serve residents and travelers alike. Located approximately 130 miles southeast of Boise, Twin Falls is a regional hub for much of southern Idaho. It's not a big city. It's kind of like an offshoot of Boise, basically. It's not too far away from Boise, but to keep going here, the highly anticipated burger chain had been open for only a week at its Twin Falls location. Its new storefront quickly became a local destination before the violence any In-N-Out that opens does. Video showed customers and In-N-Out workers distinguishable by their red aprons and branded paper hats running frantically into the parking lot as several shots were heard. The FBI has established a digital media tip line and is urging members of the public with information to submit any videos, photos, or audio that captured the shooting. Interesting. Did they do that with Charlie Kirk? Anyway, I did see a crazy video of the shooter point blank taking out 2 people in a Tesla because the guy who made the post was arguing that there needs to be some kind of an override because you're a sitting duck at a charger. You can't move. Your car locks up when you're charging. But I mean, only in America would you have to have that safety feature, because you'd be worried that someone might walk up and shoot you while you're sitting there charging your car. It's an interesting dynamic. But let's keep going here. Witnesses describe panic. Well, of course. Dominic Gonzalez was sitting in a car with his 2 younger brothers waiting for his sister to come back from ordering when he heard the first shots. We were just sitting there. I was playing on my phone when I heard a couple pops, and I look up and see a gentleman walking from a white vehicle to another vehicle with a pistol in his hand. Gonzalez told CNN affiliate. The man fired a shot at a vehicle. I told my 2 brothers to duck down. Gonzalez said he kept glancing up to track where the gunman was. He said he then threw himself across the front of the car just to take up space, so if anything did come flying, I was there. His sister, Jalen Sanchez, had just ordered food and stepped into the restroom when the gunfire began. As people screamed and cried, others crowded into the restroom beside her, and they tried to barricade the door. When they were told it was safe, she ran out through the drive-through line and directly into the shooter's path. As I was running, I faced the shooter head on, and he pointed a gun at me, Sanchez said. I ducked behind a white car just to have some sort of coverage. She said she saw a pistol resting on a gun case she believed belonged to the shooter. I didn't have anything to protect myself, so I grabbed the gun and pulled it back. She said it was jammed, so I just felt helpless. I saw the truck in front of me, so I got in the car and left. Interesting. So she grabbed the gun? Interesting. That's suspicious. Maybe not. I don't know. The incident joins a growing list of shootings. Excuse me, his sister. So we already. My bad. I thought I clicked the change button. The incident joins a growing list of shootings in recent months that have sent people fleeing from ordinary places, a food festival, parades, places of worship, and community gatherings across the country. Palmer advised the public to stay vigilant for more updates from the police. I would caution people. We're seeing a lot of misinformation on social media, so just be cautious, he said. The Twin Falls Police Department had urged residents to avoid the area, saying nearby roads and the Perrin Bridge, the primary crossing over the Snake River Canyon, for miles were closed. In a statement to KMVT on Saturday, In-N-Out said it was working with investigators. We were heartbroken. Our prayers go out to our customers and our associates and all their families, said Danny Warnick, the company's chief operating officer. We're working with the Twin Falls Police Department to assist in the ongoing investigation. Some of the state's representatives in Washington, D.C. said they were thankful and praying for first responders. I'm grateful for the swift response of Idaho's first responders, Senator Mike Crapo of Idaho wrote on X. So, yet another horrible public mass shooting in the United States. What's going to be done about it? Absolutely nothing. And look, my views on guns have changed a lot. I used to be very, very anti-gun, and I think the COVID pandemic changed my mind a lot on that because I saw how quickly things could get post-apocalyptic. But also, I think that we're so irresponsible with guns, and the reason is not the Second Amendment. The reason is because people make money selling guns, okay? Now, there's plenty of other countries that have guns. They don't have a Second Amendment like the United States. And I'm not arguing like I used to be one of those people who's like repealed the Second Amendment. Like I was that extreme about it. Now I'm not that quite extreme about it. But when you see this kind of senseless stuff happening, it's only human to look at this and go, what can we do to prevent this in the future? Of course, in a free country, you're never going to be able to completely stop it. And no one, I think, with any sense would argue that. And the problem with this debate is the emotions are so high on both sides that people make these emotional arguments and they don't have any sense. Like, there's definitely emotional arguments on the gun fanatic side that are way more emotional. And they accuse the people that are like, hey, we should do something about this of being overly emotional about it. And their emotions are like, oh, well, anything new is going to take all my gun rights in a way. It's like, no, but it's, we should just be more responsible about it. I always make the joke that we're the Plaxico Burress of the world. Like other countries have sensible gun laws where it's like, yeah, look, if you clear these bars and you're a responsible individual, have a freaking rocket launcher if you want. But if you don't clear these bars, if you're under a certain age or you're a person who has a history of domestic violence, that kind of stuff, then it should be more. I'm not saying you shouldn't be able to get the gun, but like there should be a review process and there should be like some hurdles you have to clear to get it. You know what I mean? And again, throw something at me in the comments if you think I'm wrong on this, but to me, it's like driver's licenses, right? It's like, I really feel like you should have a gun license. Your car has to be registered. All this shit has to be registered. You have to be responsible for the gun. So if someone takes your gun and shoots someone, you're responsible for it. Unfortunately, if someone takes your car and runs someone over, you're responsible for that. Not if they steal it, of course, but to some extent, at least we know where the gun came from. It makes it traceable. If your kid does it, someone in your family, then you're obviously responsible for it. It's a complicated thing, but there has to be some layers of accountability because, again, we're the Plaxico Burress of the world. We're the country that accidentally shoots itself in the fucking foot because we can't get our shit together. And again, to my gun-loving friends, this is not a slight to you. This is just to say that you're being emotionally manipulated with the Second Amendment shit by the gun lobby whose sole goal is just to sell as many guns as possible. They don't give a shit about your Second Amendment rights. They don't give a shit about your ability to protect your family or any of that nonsense that they spin up to make you emotional about guns. They care about selling as many guns as possible. That's it. They're a fucking business entity with bean counters that look at quarterly numbers. The people at Sig Sauer, I'm sure they're great folks, but they're not doing anything but trying to sell as many guns as possible. They're a corporate business with shareholders, and you know what I mean? So that's what it breaks down to. So I really hope that, and we're at a point in the United States where, again, it's like you can trip on a rake and get shot at a fucking mall. It's there comes a point when you just have to grow up a little bit and be a little bit more responsible about it. It's like the same thing. Look at like India, for example, and their traffic in their roads. Like, have you seen footage of like India? That's insane. Like, how did they, there's no way that would work in the United States because a lot more people would be getting shot. But my point is, yeah, everyone can have cars, but there has to be some kind of method to the madness in an organized, stable, modern country. And Americans are so egocentric. It's like you can't look around the world at countries like Canada or Switzerland that also have high gun ownership population and what they do and kind of model that to some extent. You don't have to copy it verbatim, but as you can use some of the best elements of it. And anyway, that's a little bit of a rant, but it's sad to see this stuff continue with and cowards just sitting on their hands. That's the thing I think that frustrates me the most is this is a real problem. And the reason that no one's taking any action to do anything to stop it, again, is not because of your rights. It's not because of any cute little fucking constitutional fucking things you have going through your head. It's people want to sell as many guns as possible. And any limitation on that is going to impede their profit margin, their bottom line. So put that in your pipe and smoke it. But let's also talk about what the United States projects in the world. The attitude and the aura, if you will, that we project around the world, because this is it. And this is news that you're not going to see right now because there's a lot of other nonsense going on. But this is from CNN.
Everywhere. Less than 48 hours after Donald Trump proclaimed what he called a monumental step towards peace in Gaza, Israeli forces struck 2 medicine warehouses next to Al-Aqsa Martyrs Hospital in Deir al-Balah. The Israeli military said one of the storage facilities was used as a hideout by Hamas, but did not provide any evidence. The makeshift warehouses stood right by a camp sheltering hundreds of displaced families, where rows and rows of tents packed tightly together.
فجأة صارت الضربة بقول لأولادي يلا عشان نطلع نرجع على الخيمة قالوا لي عوض الله بالخيمة. طب يعني هو حتى الخيمة مستكترينها علينا؟ يعني إحنا ما بصح لنا حتى نعيش في خيمة.
عندما قام باستهداف هذا المستودع أصاب الهلع والخوف لدى المرضى والمصابين، وهذا هذا يعتبر في تدمير البنية التحتية لمشافي قطاع غزة.
Hospitals in Gaza are already facing massive shortages of vital medical supplies as aid organizations are limited by Israel from delivering resources into the enclave. While people salvaged what they could from the rubble, a humanitarian source told CNN that among the destroyed items were dialysis supplies for more than 1,000 patients. During the last 48 hours alone, 8 people have been killed in Israeli strikes across Gaza, according to Palestinian officials.
So I show you this to kind of connect these two things. Shooting in Idaho, families continually being killed and murdered in Gaza, because we're responsible for both of those things. And those two things are combined because of our dick piggery, and I think that's kind of the overarching point that Michael Moore was making with that movie Bowling for Columbine, which was arguably one of his better movies. But we project this violence around the world, and then maybe it's our ignorance is bliss, but when it comes home to roost, we're like, oh, why is this happening to us? Why God, why us? Why would anyone shoot innocent people in the United States? Well, because our entire mindset is violent and ugly, and built around military power, raw military power. Just kill whoever you want and take whatever you want, like Genghis Khan style government, which is it's baffling. And I think, all the Trump administration really has done here is kind of rip the mask off again, because every administration has done this kind of stuff. Barack Obama was the best at it. His tenure was marked by a lot. I mean, myself included, especially for the first 4 years, was like, yay, this is awesome, guys. He's so smart and talented, and he's so smooth. He's such a smooth president. Yeah, he's very smooth. He fucking had me all doe-eyed while he's bombing the shit out of everything and killing everyone. And so I have to make that point that we reap what we sow when it comes to these mass shootings. As difficult as that is to say, and I my condolences to people that lost loved ones. Like, it's terrible. I mean, it could happen to any of us. It could happen to me. My daughter was at a mall when a shooting happened in Thousand Oaks a couple years ago. This crazy man ran in and shot his wife at the Apple store, and himself. And my daughter happened to be in the food court with a friend of hers and her parents, and they ran outside. Thankfully she wasn't hurt, but it's like, at what point does, your convenient ability to own 30 guns and 50 magazines or whatever start to infringe on my ability to go out with a coffee without getting shot at or murdered? You know what I mean? That's what we butt up against in America. And that's a debate that I'm fine having, because again, I'm not anti-gun and I don't think you should ban all guns. But this emotional argument starts to happen because as soon as we start to have a conversation about what should we do? What are some sensible things we can do? The gun lobby stirs in this whole oh, you want to take all the guns? Anything you do is a move, is a gun grab. Anything you want to do is just, no, other countries have done this. You can do a buyback program. You're not going to, it's like traffic lights didn't stop all car accidents, but they stopped most of them. The vast majority. That's all we need for guns. We need a sensible framework that allows people to own guns that are, I have a good friend who's a gun guy, and he is the most straight-laced, above-board person you'll ever meet in your life. Very honest, straightforward. That guy can have any gun he wants, as far as I'm concerned. He ain't violent. He ain't gonna hit his kids or shoot his wife in the face or anything. He's a good dude, but there needs to be some kind of a bar there to prevent people that aren't as good as him, or at least kind of stall them from getting these massive weapons where they can just go out and kill your mom or your daughter or your friend or your wife or your kid or your, anyone in your family. Why can't we come together and go hey, our family's getting killed is not good. Let's work together to try and maybe put a guardrail on this. So the last part of this week in violence in America is the Iran war. And I've covered this so much. I didn't really do a big piece on it today, but I just want to read this Patricia Marin's kind of account real quick for you as to where we're at as of today, Sunday, August 2nd, with the Iran war. Because if you don't follow her, this is a good account. I think she gets a lot of shit. She's foreign, but she's right down the middle as far as her reporting goes. I feel like she's not afraid to say when the U.S. does something that fucks up Iran, but she's also hey, Iran did XYZ. So I find her to be very trustworthy for source on these on the Iran war. So she says, amid strong rumors that Netanyahu had already agreed with Trump to resume bombings against Iran, Gulf countries like Qatar and the United Arab Emirates were already working behind the scenes. Qatar in particular had been warning about the imminent risks to its massive infrastructure and natural gas exports. This, however, was not enough to dissuade Trump, who was moving forward with his plan. especially since two major American natural gas exporting companies are benefiting from the scenario and were donors to Trump's campaign. The UAE had also been warning about the risks to its facilities, but with little progress. In the last 72 hours, these countries informed Washington that local intelligence reports confirmed Iran had already mapped oil fields, refineries, and power plants across all GCC members for an immediate counterattack should the U.S. initiate bombings, but also to no avail. It was Mohammed bin Salman who aligned the GCC's position. On Saturday, he placed a call to Trump and warned that Iran would respond to any bombings by directly attacking the energy infrastructure of Saudi Arabia and other Gulf neighbors. This was nothing Trump and Netanyahu did not already know and had not already ignored in advance when deciding on the attack. But the Saudi leader went further on behalf of the GCC. He expressly requested that Trump back down from the plans for large-scale attacks against Iranian territory. He directly demanded clarification on Washington and Tel Aviv's plan of action, arguing that missteps at this juncture would destabilize the global energy market for extended periods. In doing so, he implicitly conveyed two things. The first is that if destroyed, the GCC economies would be unable to honor the signed agreements, memorandums of understandings, and long-term structural partnerships celebrated during Trump's administration, values that range between $2 trillion and $3 trillion. This is not to mention the billions injected directly into the businesses of Donald Trump himself and his son-in-law, Jared Kushner. To the wise, it became clear that these resources could be redirected towards investments in other blocs, including the Chinese. Interesting. So it's going to affect his pocketbook now, and that's when it's a problem. The second is that if Trump refuses the request of the Saudis acting as spokespersons for the Gulf pressed ahead, he would be solely responsible for the destruction of local economies and a global economic crisis. Faced with structural disaster in their own territories, Saudi Arabia and other Gulf countries would close their airspace to American fighter jets and revoke permissions for the use of logistical bases in the region. It was these two implicit messages that deterred Trump. Everything else he had already evaluated and nonetheless decided to proceed with the attack. Now, what's the most recent news is he's making a deal again, which if you believe that at this point, you're a complete and total moron. No one believes that at this point. He's not making a deal. But this is why I think Trump is continuing the war, despite them saying that, oh, we're almost out of missiles, we're almost out of XYZ. It's the golden age for oil companies. Iran war drives oil profits to the highest levels in years, from the New York Times. So I think that, a guy like Trump, in his mind, we are winning because of that. It doesn't matter how many troops die. It doesn't matter, how many bases get destroyed. None of that matters as long as stuff like this is happening. This is what this is all about and was always all about. So strategically, I think Richard Medhurst has been on top of this too. And I covered this in a previous stream about how the U.S. is exporting record amounts of energy now, and we're blockading all the other routes. So I didn't come to the table with stuff on Russia right now in Ukraine. Maybe we'll hit on that next week. But Kiev's being bombed. That's over, basically. It's again, this violence is prolonged money laundering operations. It's so clear to me now that that's what all these forever wars are. They're just ways for people to launder money. And that's all they've ever been. I mean, the Dick Cheney, George W. Bush administration pioneered this criminality. And every administration since has taken advantage of it, including the Obama administration. All those people are still hanging around, getting contracts and, weapons deals. And now there's tech elements, there's AI and all that kind of stuff. I mean, there's always been tech elements, and I'm not one of those people who thinks we should have no military whatsoever. Of course not. That would be naive. But we should have a restraint. It should be a lot more calculated and less wasteful. I think we can all agree on that. There is a never-ending budget for war, and we can never afford to do anything else. I was arguing with this guy the other day about healthcare. He's like, we can't afford to do Medicare for all. I'm like, shut the fuck up. Are you kidding me? We just magically, whipped $1.5 trillion out of thin air to pay for a war that we didn't even know we were going to have 6 months ago. I mean, they probably knew we were going to have it, but so spare me the we can't afford it shit. You dumb. Anyway, I got to stop with the cussing. I was doing so much better. It's unfortunately just become a part of who I am, my filthy mouth, my filthy potty mouth. It's going to be old habits die hard, right? Well, let's keep going and talk now about the invasion of Spain that happened recently. Invasion of Spain. Now, when I saw this, I went like, oh, wow, like that's crazy. There's like boats full of migrants pouring into Spain from Morocco. Like they came across the ocean. No, that's not what happened. Moroccans invaded a territory that Spain owns across the ocean in Africa, in North Africa. Now, my theory instantly on this was that because it was pretty clear, and we're going to get into the details, that this was orchestrated. But it was orchestrated so that our greatest ally could point at Spain, post like World Cup and post all the like stuff that Spain has said on the world stage. One of the few European countries with any balls, Spain. I applaud Spain. In fact, Spain, this is for you. I would move to Spain. I love Spain. So I kind of had a response to a tweet that got me in a little bit of trouble with some people because they thought I was like dogging Spain. But the point I was making is that this is colonialism. I mean, clearly. And don't get me wrong. I think colonialism can be done in a I guess, humane way. And I'm not saying that that's what Spain's doing here. But my point was just that I thought that the Israel, United States kind of coalition, if you will, made this happen so that they could point at Spain and go, see, you guys are colonizers too. You know what I mean? Like that to me felt like what this was all about. Because until this happened, I didn't even know that this territory in Morocco was part of Spain, technically, that they kind of took this. So, and again, I don't know the details of the history here. However, it is a bad look because it's like, okay, Spain's out here like shaking their finger at colonialism. And then they have this colony in North Africa. And so I think this kind of psyop is something that, let's be honest, our greatest ally, they're great at this shit. They're great at making people look like total hypocrites who oppose them. It's kind of what they do, especially in politics. This is why they have so many Senate seats, and people fall for it too. That's the thing that's the most disappointing, because I think better, like with the Graham Plattner thing forever upsets me because there's still people that joined the brunch libs on that are like lefties that, buy the dumb ass smears over this, like, oh, it's a racist tattoo, or he did the vague, unsettling accusations type shit, but I'm getting sidetracked. Let's talk about the GOP, because you want to talk about like racist nonsense. These guys are the kings of it, and that includes trans influencer Blair White here. She says, crazy how family seek life are always military-age rapists. North African Muslim criminals have just broken into Spain from Morocco via Ceuta. Europe is under attack. That's how you know this is fake, Radio Genoa. This is what happens when Trump gets the USAID budget and Marco Rubio starts sending out the scripts to radio fucking Voice of America assets like Radio Genoa here. It's exactly what that is. I can guarantee you. I didn't even go into the like dirty, scummy details of this, but I can guarantee you that Radio Genoa here gets money from Voice of America or some kind of NGO cutout that's designed to push shit like this. I had to respond with, crazy how the part of Spain they are invading is on the continent of Africa. I got a lot. What are the replies I got here? Hawaii is the USA. Hey. Yeah, these people are bad. Listen, again, these people are upset with me like I'm like not I'm on Spain's side 100%. Look at how mad people get too. What exactly is your fucking point? It's part of Spain. Are you implying that anyone can invade a country if it happens to be in Africa? Should the United States invade countries and have fucking idiot? It's Spain. Cry about it. And it's their land. It's their land. Again, I'm not even saying that you're wrong about this stuff, folks. What I am saying is it definitely gives them the fodder that they want to say, like, hey, look at you got, oh, Israel's bad because we're not, we're over here being colonists, but like, look what Spain's doing in North Africa, and they're out shaking their fingers at us like we're bad. You know what I mean? That's all I'm saying. And listen, you don't have to preach. You're preaching to the choir when you telling me about the crimes of Zionism or the crimes of the United States empire. It's like all I talk about every week. So I'm on your team when it comes to that. I'm just saying it looks bad. It's a bad look. And just to continue with this, This is from an actual Spanish account. The Moroccan police empty entire trucks loaded with military-age males so they can storm the Spanish border. Everything is organized and planned. Now, keep in mind, the quality of this video, this could be AI for all I know. I didn't look at it that close, but I believe that if it was AI, someone probably would have flagged it as such already, and I don't see anything. I don't see any community notes on it. So, of course, you got Elon Musk in the comments here. Wow. Pedro Sanchez is a traitor. Only I wonder who's behind this. So, as you can see, it does seem like a little bit of a engineered thing. And this is another great account. Susan Abulawa, I guess is her name. No, this was completely engineered by the U.S., Israel, and Morocco. This is how Sanchez and Spain at large are punished for challenging Israel and re-educated to fall back in line with Western imperial objectives. Insane footage from the Moroccan border with Spain. So this is another, whether that truck video is AI or not, there's plenty of alternate views of this invasion of Spain. And that's what you get when you let your heart win. That's what you get when you let your heart win. But let's go back to our slideshow here because we're going to cap this off with a tweet from friend of the show, Ryan Knight here, proud socialist. He says there is so much misinformation being spread about what's actually happening in Spain. 1, migrants are not swimming or taking boats to Spain's mainland. Ceuta is a Spanish enclave on Morocco's northern coast. This is a coordinated effort by Morocco's government, seen in the video below, transporting migrants in trucks to Ceuta. So there's another video of them transporting them. Morocco's government, even if it was AI, this really happened. Morocco's government aligns with Israel and the U.S., so these efforts most likely aim to punish Spain for supporting Palestine and opposing the U.S. and Israel's ongoing war against them. And yeah, I totally agree. Like I said, it gives them fodder that they can point out and go, look, see, Spain's a hypocrite. They're doing colonialism too. Like the people pointed out in those comments, the U.S., Hawaii, Alaska, Virgin Islands, like all these territories around, it makes sense as a country to secure, your surroundings. Like they have a shipping lane. Spain has a shipping lane right there between Morocco and Spain. Of course, they're going to secure that other side of the shipping lane, so that's, especially given what's going on. Obviously they've been in Morocco for a long time, but especially when you see what's going on with the Strait of Hormuz, like Iran has control of it. So, there's a whole bunch of things to consider here. The other thing to consider here is Spain is an empire itself. South America is in Mexico, Central and South America was colonized by Spain now entirely. I stay in New Mexico a lot, and Santa Fe existed before the United States did. It was a Mexican colony or a Spanish colony. There were Spanish colonies and missions in the United States on United States territory before the United States existed. So again, Spain ain't no innocent little angel either. Of course, like the stuff that Coronado did is horrific. Every bit as horrific as the, British or settlers in the United States did to the Native Americans here. So we all have blood on our hands one way or another, I guess is what you could say. And so that kind of stuff is irrelevant. I think what matters most is where you stand today. And Spain is on the right side of history now. And that, I think, is ultimately what is important. So let's get into a very controversial story. This is a good one, actually. This is one you're not going to see on like a lot of other shows because it's me centric. Not necessarily, but it involves one of my petty little conflicts this week on Twitter. So I want to start this by saying one of the most influential rock albums, I think, of all time, regardless of how you feel about the music, whether you like the music or not, is Rage Against the Machine's debut album with the burning monk on the cover. That record, for me personally, is probably in the top 5 rock albums of my, favorite best rock albums of all time. And I can sing every goddamn lyric on that album to every song. I know how to play most of the guitar riffs on it. I thoroughly agree with pretty much all the sentiment of the songs and the messaging behind the songs on it. In fact, this is crazy. I can't believe I'm telling you this story, but I think this is a good story because this is a sidebar story. When I was a kid, I was so into Rage Against the Machine, I wrote a letter to join their fan club. They had an address, on their CD that you could send off to join their fan club. On the envelope, I drew an American flag burning on the envelope with a pen because I'm a little bit of a sketch artist. So I literally drew out the outside of the envelope an American flag on fire. And I sent this letter to Rage Against the Machine, and they signed me up for their fan club. But I got like some super access where I still have the proof of these today. They're not with me right now, or I'd pull them out and show them to you. But they mailed me vinyl records and 45s. So I have like a Rage Against the Machine 45 for People of the Sun, and a Rage Against the Machine. These are vinyl 45s, like very limited edition. So this is just to tell you, not to brag about my rare Rage Against the Machine vinyl, but just to tell you just to explain to you what a massive, massive fan I am of this band and everything that they stand for, And when you really read the lyrics, they're very intelligent. Like the song Bullet in the Head, for example, is about propaganda during the Iraq War. The first one, actually, I believe. Obviously the first one, because it came out before George W. Bush was even president. This time the bullet hole rocked you. A yellow ribbon instead of a swastika. A yellow ribbon instead of a swastika. Like that's the kind of lines that Raging. So again, this is Zach, the vocalist, that writes these lines, though, of course. So anyway, I say this. I preface this whole tirade about how much I love Rage Against the Machine is to set this up. I follow Tom Morello. Yes, he's a brunch lib. Yes, he's a little bit of a pain in the ass.
Well, you know, that's just like your opinion, man.
I still love his music, and I forgive him for his sins. So recently, Tom Morello tweeted this out, and it says he retweeted this woman who tweeted a picture of a guy's arm with tattoos, and it says, "Wow, this isn't surprising. It's ICE agents with Nazi tattoos." Okay, so where do I start? Then Tom retweets that and says, "Some of those that work forces are the same that burn crosses," with a question mark. Yes, Tom, actually, that is the truth. Have you ever seen the police badge and the runaway slave patrol badge side by side? It's uncanny how close they are. And that historic basis for policing explains the level of racism that's present in American policing. And I think this is the thing that's tough about guys like Tom Morello is he's not wrong. You know, there is racism in American policing. The George Floyd incident is proof of that. The Rodney King incident is proof of that. Does that mean that white people don't get it too from cops? No, not at all. They get it too. But it's if you look at the statistics, it's vastly lopsided. The prison, the police, American policing and prison system largely targets and incarcerates non-whites. I mean, that's just the reality. And again, I'm not saying that there aren't plenty of whites in there, because there are. And I think we're getting more and more towards a society where it's really not about race anymore. It's just about poors and riches. So anyway, this kind of upset me because nowhere in this photo is a Nazi tattoo whatsoever. And the three interlocked triangles here is something, you know, for me that it's like a familial thing. I come from Scandinavian roots. My grandfather was an immigrant to the United States from Sweden. His name is on a plaque at Ellis Island. So, you know, as a dumb kid, you know, you're looking up tattoo ideas. You got to look into your culture and your history and all that kind of stuff. You know, I got into all these Viking symbolism, and this is called a Valknut, this three triangles thing. And it's not a racist symbol. I ended up looking at this, and I will say, at least you can't see this guy's face, because imagine like just accusing this, like they're accusing this guy of being a Nazi, basically. And again, I have no sympathy for ICE agents, okay, whether they're Nazis or not. However, that's the kind of shit. It's stochastic terrorism. It's the kind of stuff I don't like. It's the reason that people keep calling Mamdani all this stuff, like he's a socialist, he's a Muslim terrorist, all this stuff. It's stochastic terrorism. They want someone to freak out and make a move on him. And I feel like it's the same thing with this from the other side, with like, you're a Nazi. That's a Nazi thing. We want people to like attack these people violently. The people who say that do, and that's why they do this. So I had to chime in and add my 2 cents to the debate. And the first thing I jumped to was this. My initial response was this: that's not a Nazi symbol. If you really want to find Nazis, just follow the money the USA sends to Ukraine. Zing. Wait, where's my great joke. There you go. Scratching my own back here. This, of course, is an article from 2018 when Ro Khanna put up an amendment to the funding bill to try and prevent the American funds that were going to Ukraine from getting into the hands of neo-Nazi militias, which there were plenty of in Ukraine. This is again from 2018, before Putin invaded. Putin. Some people, so most people, when you say Putin, they hear this. This is what I hear when you say Putin. I love Putin. Sue me. I'm on Putin's side 100%. I'm a Putin puppet all day. Just kidding. Tom Morello would have me murdered for that, by the way. But this is what we jump to next, is I had to explain to these hypocritical brunch liberals who support Nazis in Ukraine all day long, and in fact, send money to them, but they're smearing people they don't even know with vague symbols they don't understand as being Nazis or Nazi associated, Nazi adjacent. So I had to jump in and explain what the symbol actually was. This is a Valknut. Viking Valknut is an ancient Norse symbol made of 3 interlocking triangles, meaning the knot of the slain, connected to Odin and linked to the afterlife. And you can see this guy over here, like I have the comments over here. Rage grew into a bunch of bootlicking fairies. I say I'm still defending them, you can see. But this guy goes, yes, but Nazis have co-opted the symbol. And this drives me insane. So you can see my response here. I said, if Nazis started poofing up their hair into afros, you would call afros a racist Nazi symbol? What you're admitting here is your own mental illness. Well, Nazis have co-opted the thumbs up, so doing a thumbs up means you hate Jews and love Hitler. And the point that I'm making here is this, okay? Nazis co-opted the swastika, right? But the difference between the swastika and other symbols that Nazis have supposedly co-opted is that the swastika was on all their shit. The swastika was on their planes. It was on their uniforms. It was on their flags. So, okay, fair enough. Like, that's a symbol we can't... If you get a swastika tattoo, yeah, that kind of looks suspicious. Like, well, I'm doing it for the old version, the Earth, Wind, and Fire and Water one. Okay, yeah, that's a case where the symbol has been... But when you're talking about modern people who call themselves Nazis co-opting a symbol and now that symbol's off limits, go fuck yourself. I'm sorry. That is just... You don't get to claim that someone you accuse of being a Nazi has full rights to a symbol you don't even know what it is. And now that anyone else that uses that symbol because some vaguely accused Nazi guy used it is also a Nazi. That's absolute stupidity at its finest. And no one with any brain, no one with any sense of mental stability will accept that. That is just stupid. I'm trying not to say retarded because now that word is overused. Everyone uses it constantly now. So once I pointed out how stupid it is that you can just co-opt any symbol like an afro, all of a sudden it's like, oh, a lot of Nazis now are wearing afros. Now that's a Nazi. That afros were co-opted by the Nazis, and anyone with an afro is a Nazi-loving Jew hater. Like, that's ridiculous. So is this. It's easier to make this jump, though, because Vikings are white, and this is a weird-looking, obscure symbol from the past, and Vikings were terrible. Most of history was terrible. You know what I mean? Genghis Khan was terrible. We don't need to live in the past. Let's just try to do better, okay? So after I kind of locked this argument down and made the people look stupid, this is where it went next. It's the Totenkopf skull on his elbow that's in question. Okay, now it's going to shift to, now it's this. Now he's saying it's what's down here on the guy's elbow, the Totenkopf skull. This is what they got Graham Plattner thrown out of the Senate race over. Well, it took a lot more than the Totenkopf skull, but that was definitely part of the Jenga structure that they knocked him out with. So right off the bat, I just have to dismiss this because it's ridiculous. And then the guy underneath me actually pointed out, you mean the Memento Mori tat? Because this isn't a Totenkopf. It's a skull. And So now if you get a pirate flag tattoo and the bones are too close together, you're an anti-Semite. That's how and I used to laugh at people who would say, oh, it's a slippery slope. Use the slippery slope argument. In this case, it really is. Like, now anything's a Nazi, anyone's a Nazi. There doesn't have to be any. What's really crazy to me about all of this is how well these guys know Nazi stuff. I had no idea what the Totenkopf even was. I don't study Nazi history and paraphernalia. Like, I don't collect Nazi propaganda or Nazi memorabilia. So I don't know what Nazi shit is. I'm blissfully ignorant to most obscure Nazi symbolism. Forgive me for that. I don't spend my day and time searching for Nazi symbolism in everything I look at. Maybe that's what's wrong with me. Anyway, the whole thing is ridiculous. And okay, I just want to end by saying this. Unless they Holocausted a bunch of like Jews or minorities, they're not a Nazi. They're nowhere. A guy who has Hitler memorabilia and does a goose step around town, okay, cute. Like, he's trying to piss you off. Ignore him and it will go away. Anyone, if I see a guy in the street like threatening a black person or threatening like a minority or a child or something, like, I'm gonna get in their face whether they're a Nazi or not. So this is what it breaks down to. And we live in a world where with AI and technology the way it is, you can be conditioned and tricked into anything, and you have to be smarter than that. You have to stop being emotionally reactive to this kind of propaganda, Tom Morello, and thinking things through more clearly. Okay, I realize, Tom, that you are rich and retired. This goes out to you, Tom. I'm speaking to you, Tom, right now. I know you're watching the show. I know you're sitting in your. Anyway, Tom, use some common sense. And this is coming from a lifelong fan. Your stupid brunch liberal politics aren't going to make me any less of a fan. I realize the thing about these brunch liberal politics, before we close this out, I have to say this just so people understand, because I'm not hateful towards like brunch liberal Democrats or like the Hillary Clinton type Democrat people. The thing that's upsetting about them, I think, is that they don't realize that they're doing their own cause a disservice, you know? And I think that at their core, they really do mean well. That's the tough part about this, you know? And I was talking with someone recently about the COVID thing and how people are genuinely good and our goodwill gets weaponized against us, you know? Like, that's what the COVID thing did. It made people who care about humans and humanity, and I'm one of those people, so I know this. It made those people hateful towards, you know, anyone who was like, oh, I don't know if I want to do the vaccine or whatever, or like anyone who's like, oh, I'm voting for Trump. It's like, no, kill those people. You know, it's like, and that's when my politics started to shift, because I saw that dynamic occurring, not only in other people, but in myself. And I realized that I'm like harboring this ugly hatred towards people that are actually really good people. We just don't see eye to eye on a certain thing. And a lot of times the things we don't see eye to eye on are not even like relevant to the greater whole of society, or we actually do see kind of closer together than we thought when we actually sit down and talk to each other and engage with each other. And I think that the divide and conquer thing, it's been used so hardcore the last like 10, 20 years on American people. And I'm so glad that a lot of people are waking up to it. So I'm going to end off on that little soapbox rant, and we're going to move on to Boy George. Quick story on the legend Boy George. This is the Boy George I love and remember. This is the karma chameleon guy. This is the do you really want to hurt me guy, right? Look at that cute little hat. Look at those beautiful eyes. You know, whether you're I'm not even attracted to men, and I can just say that's a beautiful man right there, right? You gotta respect that. Well, Guy's a pop icon, right? I mean, if you're my age, you know the songs. Guy's set for life. Well, recently, I think with a lot of these guys, and I'm a musician myself, so hopefully I never get to this point where I'm like, where people are like, dude, don't put anything else out. But like, I really think in the case of like someone like Boy George, like, don't put anything else out. Like, what are you doing? Or if you do, this is the thing too, okay? And maybe this is just me because I have like artistic integrity and like integrity in general, but like, if I was super famous and I had like a super successful project, this is what I love about guys like Mike Patton, is it's like, I would release music under a fake alias so no one knew it was me. You know what I mean? So it wouldn't be judged as like, and I think that's what I love about guys like Mike Patton, who have like 1,000 different projects and just released stuff under different names and stuff like that. But anyway, enough of my career advice to Boy George. Let's talk about Boy George's new track, because he released a new song recently, and from what I hear, it is fire. Okay, I actually listened to it. It's not. It's definitely not fire. It's fire in a different way. It's like fire in the hole, maybe. Like the fire you have in your anus after you eat like jalapeno nachos and you have to spray the bowl and it just burns your O-ring. Do you guys love my poetic language? I did a rant a while back where I was talking about dumpster juice. And anyway, sorry about that. Sorry, let's keep going. So, Politics Global here says, new Boy George has released a song in solidarity with Israel. One of the opening lines is, you say genocide, I say war. When you're attacked, that's what the army is for. Very clever Dr. Seuss lyric there. Boy George. See, it rhymes because it rhymes. Max Blumenthal says, many are focusing on the fact Boy George was jailed for chaining a male escort to a wall and beating him with a metal rod, as Israeli soldiers often do in prisoners, and are ignoring that this is a historically terrible song in a particularly Israeli white guy reggae type way. Well, needless to say, regardless of what you or Max thinks about the song, it was released. And let's take a look at some of the comments, shall we? Let's take a deep dive into the comments underneath Boy George's new track. So let's go to the streets. Let's hear from the streets. What are the streets saying about George? Boy George's let's start calling him Goy George. What streets saying about Goy George's new song? No, they're not saying that.
Lament for my cock.
Might be saying that. New Boy George has released a song in solidarity. Okay, we already read that. Let's listen. Let's listen to just a second of this.
You said genocide.
You know what the beat sounded like? It goes. It kind of reminds me of that song, "Baby, 'Cause I'm a Thug." You ever heard that? Trick Daddy.
I say war when you're attacked.
Okay. Hey, you heard it here first. Boy George's new Israeli reggae track. But let's check the comments here. Let's see what the public, what the streets got to say about Boy George's new track. Line up to spit. That's Syrian girl. He must be broke. He was selling autographs in April. Then Boy George can get the rope. Okay. This comment reminded me of those paste picante sauce commercials. This stuff's made in New York City. Get a room. You asked to leave, I say later. Chain that rib boy to a radiator. This guy's throwing out some additional lyrics, additional verses. Same Boy George who kidnapped a male escort and whipped them with a chain. Oh, give it a rest, Boy George. Israel has the right to go F themselves. You chain rent boys to radiators. No wonder you get along with it. So everyone's attacking him for this. It was 17 years ago. Whoa, look at that head tattoo he's got. That's pretty sick. That's like some Aleister Crowley stuff. That's like some ritual magic type shit he's got on his head there. I didn't even notice that. Very par for the course for the Zionists to deploy a has-been pervert who handcuffs rent boys to his household plumbing and beats them to do a black and white minstrel show reggae track that implicitly, explicitly endorses the slaughter of Palestinian men, women, and children. And to that tweet, I'm just going to have to go ahead and say. So there's definitely a lot of negativity here. But Boy George did respond. Let's see what he had to say. So many people are calling me and saying I should pipe down and let it blow over. While they mean well, I'm afraid it's not an option. Doubling down works for Donald Trump, and we share a birthday with Che Guevara, Alan Carr, and Paul O'Grady. Okay. I love that he whipped out Che Guevara there. That's the right wingers that are supporting him here are gonna love that. What a super group that would be. Move over steps. I do think he probably did that to kind of flash his like leftist creds a little bit, his leftist credentials. Like, hey, Che Guevara, I have the same birthday as Che Guevara and Donald Trump. So he says, what a super group that would be. Move over steps. What is the most shocking amount of gay folk attacking me? What's most shocking is the amount of gay folk attacking me, but I'm smart enough to realize that what you are cannot disguise who you are. No gay person speaks for an entire community. And if you support terrorism, you can, in the words of Divine, take your toolkit and go fuck a garage. I think what's interesting about this is, and again, I maybe feel some sympathy for these people because they're just so ignorant to the reality of what's actually going on, because he himself supports terrorism. And it's like, I can't really point a finger or like shake a finger or act like I have any moral high ground because I live in the United States and we are the terrorists of the world. When I say they want to kill every last one of us, I'm also talking about us queers, not just the Jewish community. When will you wake up, regardless of which side you take? I am disgusted by anyone who posts hatred against anyone but refuses to show their face. So now he's playing the gay card, and he's basically switching the. He's only mad at people who anonymously attack him. Okay, if you have something powerful to say, then you should have the guts to show the world who you are. But most of all, if not all of you are unwilling to show your faces, the only reason is self-interest. Now, I took that a little bit personal. If you have something powerful to say, then you should have the guts to show the world who you are, because I wear sunglasses and a hat on every show. I have the guts to show. I mean, I'm not hiding who I am, but also struck a nerve with me. So the comments under this got so brutal, he ended up having to respond to a couple of them. And I want to show you like some of that before we move on. This is Dead Patsy. You support our greatest ally, terrorism, so shut your mouth, you piece of... Collective punishment is wrong, so is the terrorism committed by both Hamas and Israel. If you condemn terrorism, you should condemn both. Israel has been terrorizing Palestinians for nearly 80 years. He says, why are you following me? Please imagine me asking you this in the voice of Joan Crawford. So, see, this is the part about this that again, kind of really reveals a lot to me about who these people are, because this guy makes a very solid point. And rather than addressing any of the intellectual merit of that point, Boy George says something about like, why are you following me? And it's this privileged thing where I don't block people on Twitter. I do not do it unless you're like, I've never had anyone threaten me to the point like, if you were maybe like threatening death on me or something, I might block you, but I've never blocked anyone on Twitter ever. Because to me, it's all about the open debate. But I feel like people like this guy, their entire life is an insulated bubble. So it's very easy for them. And he's a very wealthy and has been very wealthy for a long time. So he's surrounded by people who feel this way. That's what he knows. And you have to understand that when you think about like why these people do the things they do. Because I ask myself that a lot, and I don't think people do that enough. When people do things, no one, like very few people are inquisitive enough to go, why did they do that? I wonder why they did that, and think and ask that question. And you might not always have like a clear answer to that question, but I think it's good to ask, because even if you have like 3 or 4 potential answers to that question, you're learning something, you know? So he responded again after this, and he said, in Buddhism, we understand that every action comes with a consequence. Due to my decision to stand up for my Jewish friends, I'm losing a few people from my life. Today, I parted company with Tony Pontius, who has run my label for BGP for a number of years. I wanted to release Will Dance Again, but he was unequivocal and said, I want nothing to do with this song. And I responded, okay, we are done. When somebody is gutless and really does not hurt to say goodbye, my faith in humanity will not diminish and the truth will always win. I will release it. And he did release it. So this might have actually been before. But I just want to say what a hero that Boy George is, standing up for the downtrodden Jewish folks in the entertainment industry. Hopefully someday they will get a leg up in that industry, because we all know that Jewish folks are vastly underrated in the entertainment industry. That's just an industry that's historically been anti-Semitic. There are no Jewish. I don't know why there are no Jewish people in entertainment. Don't ask me why they're not there, but they aren't. That is what we call ridiculously exaggerated sarcasm. But let's close this out with a couple of jokes, shall we? Boy George announcing that he's leaving Twitter forever, only to come back 5 days later with a white reggae pro-Israel song written by AI, is like being thrown out of a restaurant for being drunk and then storming back in and shouting, and another thing, and then shitting your pants. This guy said, Boy George, what a cunt. And I said, do you really want to hurt me? Yes. So the guy voiced his opinion, Boy George, and a lot of people were not happy with that opinion. A lot of people find him to be incredibly out of touch. A lot of people find him to be displaying a slosa, what I refer to as a slosa, stunning lack of self-awareness. Speaking of stunning lack of self-awareness, this is the final sprinkle on this cupcake for y'all. I'm getting real creative with those food references. This is anti-LGBTQ Mike Huckabee is suddenly a fan of Boy George because Israel. And here you go. Never thought I'd be a fan of Boy George, mostly a classic rock guy, but here I am. Isn't that amazing?
I like that song. Yay!
Mike Huckabee loved the song because of course he did. He liked the song not because he liked the song, but because he's paid to like the song. Mike Huckabee.
I like that song. Yay!
All of a sudden, Israel just sends him like $1,000. Mike Huckabee is. Let's recap that. Mike Huckabee.
I like that song. Yay!
Bank deposit from Israel. All right, let's keep going. We're going to talk about Texas right now because Texas is being silly. Texas, why are you being silly, Texas? You silly guys. Texas, you're so silly. That's my Texas sound effect. So a lot of people I know moved to Texas from California. And I think a lot of those people are going to be regretting that decision as of late because Texas is getting a little stupid. And speaking of
Yo, we here now. Stupid.
Texas recently passed some new, very restrictive cannabis laws. And as someone who is a passionate advocate for cannabis right here, a plant that has greatly enhanced my life and the lives of people around me, I have to say there's a lot of like misinformation about what actually happened, but it isn't good, however you look at it. So we're going to dive deep into the details around this landmark new legal liability for cannabis in Texas. We're going to talk about the misinformation and the actual real world policy effects of this change and how it may or may not affect you if you are in Texas or if you're planning on visiting Texas anytime soon. This right here is why I spend a lot of time in Albuquerque instead of Austin, because Albuquerque gets it. We just got to make sure that this mic is functional. I think I just bumped it. Anyway, point I was making is I'm glad I didn't pack up my shit and move to Austin, Texas, because this is kind of a sad turn of events for the good people of Austin when we really dig into the details here. So let's start with what this guy kind of has to say about this recent change in Texas marijuana laws. Let's go ahead and so this is basically like a just a TikTok guy talking about what these upcoming changes in Texas pot laws and kind of hammer a little bit on
Summer. So Texas is about to have a stressful ass summer. Matter of fact, the rest of your 2025 Texas is about to be stressful. So basically, Texas is banning marijuana. If you smoke it, you're getting locked up. Texas is also banning vibrators, ladies. Vibrators. And of course, to top it off, Texas is making porn illegal. And what that says to me is that Texas is tired of seeing you enjoy yourself. See, I went down that rabbit hole in Texas. I found out that y'all not getting locked up like they want y'all to be locked up. And I've been to Texas a couple of times, and I also seen in Texas that it's a lot of liquor stores, a lot of different places. And guess what? Liquor sales is down. So you take that, the liquor sales, and then you see that jails ain't been jailing like they usually are jailing, and you understand why they would do some shit like this. Marijuana ain't hurting nobody, but they want you to get drunk. They want you to go out there and act a fool and want you to get locked up. So what do? They say, listen, if you smoke marijuana, you're going to get locked up. So you can go buy some liquor. And ladies, they say, you can't do X, Y, and Z. What we want you to do is leave the vibrators alone. Come on outside and drink some alcohol and go get locked up. And I ain't got the theory for porn. You shouldn't be watching porn anyway, but it's your own business. But, you know, they banning porn too.
Locked up and knocked up. So the prison angle is a good one. Let me let him finish.
Sis, y'all gonna have it rough in a few, boy. That's wild.
So that's pretty crazy stuff. But how much of it is actually true? You know, he makes a lot of good points, but I also want to examine this other guy's post because this guy Akash Gupta also had kind of an interesting angle on this. And then we're going to get into like the actual meat of an article that kind of explains the changes from a Texas local media perspective. Texas never legalized marijuana. This is Akash Gupta. It still built an $8 billion THC industry, bigger than California's entire legal weed market, 8,000 stores, 50,000 jobs. On Friday, one court ruling erases it, and the whole thing traces back to rope farmers. The 2018. So this guy, before we continue here, the guy I showed you before was talking about the effects on alcohol, which I'm sure alcohol and tobacco, those lobbies definitely play a part. They have to be. Also prison law. There's all these lobbies that want the status quo to stay in place, right? So let's finish this. The 2018 Farm Bill legalized hemp so farmers could grow fiber and CBD. Congress defined legal hemp by a single molecule under 0.3% Delta-9 THC. Chemists read that definition and realized cheap legal CBD can be converted into Delta-8 THC with acid and heat. Slightly different molecule, similar high, technically hemp. Texas signed its own hemp law in 2019 to help agriculture. 6 years later, the state with zero recreational marijuana had one of the largest legal THC markets in America. California's regulated cannabis market, built over a decade with licenses and taxes, sells around $4.6 billion a year. The Texas loophole outgrew it without a single dispensary license. Then the strangest part, the Texas legislature passed a total ban in 2025, and Abbott vetoed it to protect the industry. The thing that actually killed it was a 2021 health department rule that spent 5 years frozen behind a court injunction. On May 1st, the Texas Supreme Court dissolved the injunction. The rule woke up after half a decade and takes effect July 31st. Austin police say possession becomes a felony the same day a product that was legal in Texas for 7 years sold in gas stations taxed by the state. The molecule never changed. One sentence in a farm bill built an $8 billion industry in Texas, and one court ruling deleted it with 3 weeks of notice. That is interesting, to say the least. Another interesting take, and obviously he backs it up with like some data on, you know, Abbott vetoing it to protect the industry. They wield a lot of money and power. That's an important part of the story. But there's another interesting take that I wanted to share with you. And so they mentioned this whole like Delta-8, Delta-9 thing. And so this is where I kind of got lost. I really wanted to get into the details of this because of stuff like this. Because this guy says this is for gas station weed and honestly good. So regular weed is a misdemeanor in Texas. This still went for the loophole gas station vendors were using to sell fent-adjacent mid. By fent, he means fentanyl. So he's basically saying what the loophole does is it, you know, if you know anything about cannabis and cannabis products, Delta-8 is like it's like the manufactured version of THC. It's like a fake version that they put in the vapes and stuff, but it does get you high, but it's not the same. I mean, honestly, I took some Delta-8 edibles in Iowa one time and I got so blasted. I was like paranoid at the airport that I was being followed by like the FBI or something. It was crazy. Like I went to my grandpa's funeral. Like the FBI has no reason to follow me. That's how, and I smoke a lot of weed. So anyway, Delta-8 is legit, but a few different angles on the story. So what I wanted to do is really get some clarity on this, you know, because for someone who cares about this issue and has relatives in Texas, you know, there's a good chance I'll end up there at some point in the near future, and I don't want to get arrested. So it's interesting that like everyone else is kind of moving forward with this, but some states like Texas are kind of moving backwards. And I'll share some of my theories, my personal theories as to why they're doing this with you in just a moment, but let me show you this first. This is for that gas. So I showed you the gas station weed. But let's read this article from Texas Tribune. So Texas is banning several THC products. Find out what will still be legal on July 31st. So the subheading here says, although several synthetically derived cannabis products will be banned on July 31st, Delta 9 THC products will still remain legal. And this is from July 30th, so a couple days ago. Texans, sorry. No. Here we go. Texans' access to a variety of hemp-derived THC products will significantly narrow on Friday, this past Friday. Texas will ban several hemp-derived THC cannabis products, including those containing Delta 8 and Delta 10 THC variants, punishing people in possession of them with jail time and fines. However, Delta 9 THC, the most commonly sold THC product in Texas, will remain legal. So right off the bat, how do you enforce this? Like the cops like, oh, is that a Delta 8 product? Oh, it's Delta 9. Okay, you're good. Get out of here. Like, oh, is that Delta 8? Ah, you going to jail, motherfucker. It's like, what? How are they going to enforce this? It's ridiculous. So this is the latest blow to the state's hemp industry, which has been consumed with uncertainty over the last several months as flurries of court actions have ripped products off shelves and then put them back on. So the recent change stems from Texas Supreme Court decision in May that allowed the Texas Department of State Health Services to reclassify all hemp-derived THC except for low-dose Delta 9 THC as a Schedule I drug, prohibiting its possession and sale in the state. The ruling ended 2021 injunction that paused the DSHS from enforcing the new classification, which effectively allowed stores to stock different kinds of THC for the past 5 years. Cannabis experts say Friday's ban could remove more than half of the THC products off some stores' shelves. It's a pretty big blow, and it's recriminalizing a lot of cannabis products that have been completely legal and allowable in the state for many years. So we're taking steps backwards towards prohibition, said Sarah Todd, media representative at Texas Cannabis Policy Center. Here's what we know about the THC ban. What is banned? The ban applies to all synthetically created THC forms, including Delta 8 and Delta 9. So synthetically created THCP and THCA flower. So like that guy was saying, it's the gas station strains. The one exception will be Delta 9 products with less than 0.3% THC by dry weight. Interesting. A lot of the bud I get is like 30 something, like I guess it's 0.35 plus, you know. Delta 8 and Delta 10 give a weaker high, which is why some consumers might choose these options, said Joe Mitchell, manager of ATX Organics and legislative director of Texas Cannabis Collective. Delta 9, which naturally occurs in cannabis and is not typically synthetically derived, will remain the only THC option for Texas consumers because the federal 2018 Farm Bill legally defines hemp as cannabis containing no more than 0.3 Delta 9 THC, and it does not list other cannabinoids. This is interesting because he had something about the rope industry. So like the rope industry doesn't want them using hemp or something like that. I didn't really grasp what that means, I think. Can Texans still find intoxicating THC? Yes. Consumers can still buy intoxicating products as long as they contain legal amounts of Delta 9. This includes continued access to Delta 9 edibles, drinks, and tinctures. A statewide ban on the sale of smokable hemp, such as flower buds and rolled joints, was supposed to go into effect on March 31st, but a court ruling has paused it. So Delta 9 smokable hemp will also still be available to consumers. Texas banned the sale of vape pens containing THC in that last legislative session. So they tried to ban, this is crazy. They did try to ban smokable weed, but the cannabis lobbies in the state have enough power, they were able to stop it. They're basically, what it looks like is they're basically hanging on by a thread now. To, you know, a small remaining market that they might be able to serve. And then again, how do you enforce these laws? Cops have to like come in your car and be like, is that Delta 9 or Delta 8. I mean, I guess if they pull you over and you have weed at all, you're in trouble. So when it goes to court, you can be like, oh, it's Delta 9. So it's like less of a penalty, maybe. I don't know. But this is really crazy. And I don't think it's going to make, what it's going to do is make the black market much larger, which also makes me wonder if there's a cartel angle here, because Texas is a border state. So the whole thing is just, it doesn't make any sense, especially since Texas is one of those states that like prides itself on being the freedom libertarian state. Like, you can do whatever you want as long as it doesn't, hurt other people. You can have all the guns you want. You can do yada, yada, yada. But so it's off brand for Texas. And for that reason, I have to believe a big part of it is, of course, these lobbies, like the alcohol lobby, the tobacco lobby, the prison lobby. But what I think it's going to do is make most people just stay home. But let's keep going. Why is this happening? The July 31st ban follows a Texas Supreme Court decision that cleared the way for state to enforce the 2021. This is what he kind of covered earlier. The law was there for like 5 years, but it was being like held up because of an injunction, and then they dissolved. So the Texas court decision that cleared the way for the Senate to enforce a 2020 Department of State Health Services rule classifying Delta 8 THC and other synthetic hemp-derived THC variants as Schedule 1 controlled substances. In 2021, Austin-based hemp retailer Hometown Hero and other hemp businesses sued DSHS, arguing that the state had overstepped its authority. Notice how it's Austin-based. It's like California transplants that kind of like rose up and cornered the market. So this is one of my theories too. Let me finish this article and then I'll explain it to you, because I've spent plenty of time in Austin and Dallas. But in 2021, okay, we already read that. Being skipped. Let's go to the next slide here. My bad. DSHS argued that hemp-derived THC products should be treated as controlled substances because they are psychoactive drugs. For years, some lawmakers have tried to ban all THC products over concerns that they harm children. Alcohol is a psychoactive drug. Data provided from the Texas, everything's a psychoactive. Fuck, Tylenol is a psychoactive drug if you want it to be. I mean, not necessarily, but alcohol alters your perception. It's a psychoactive drug. Data provided from the Texas Poison Center Network confirms a sharp increase in cannabis-related poisoning calls starting in 2019 after hemp-derived THC was legalized by the federal government. Of course, all these people that are high are like, oh my gosh, I ate too many edibles. From 923 to 2,669 last year. The majority of these calls involve suspected poisoning of children under the age of 5 and teenagers. So that's bad parenting. It's kind of like I love how libertarians like this are willing to take the risk when it's guns. Like, oh, that's just part of the course. Like, people are going to get shot. But when it comes to this, like, oh, kids got some weed, we need to shut it down. We need to ban all weed. Some kids got it. It's like, dude, kids get guns and run into school and kill other kids, and you're fine with that. But like a little bit of weed gets into they didn't even say. What I think is great about these articles too, where they cite these like poison control data, they never tell you how these calls ended, right? They're like, oh, the number of calls to poison control center went up from 900 to almost 3,000. And then you're like, okay, how did those calls go? Hey, I'm tripping, dude. I ate a bunch of edibles. You're high. Fucking drink some water and go to sleep. Like that. That's how the story ends. 9 times out of 10. In Texas, customers must be at least 21 years old to purchase THC products, which again, they're kind of making the point like, look, these minors are getting it. This is a major development for Texas families, said Aubrey Adams, director of the Citizens for a Safe and Healthy Texas. I would like to look in who funds Citizens for a Safe and Healthy Texas. In fact, let's take a quick sidebar here and do that real quick while we're online. I didn't see that reference when I Citizens for a Safe and Healthy Texas. Okay. Interesting. Let's look at this for a second. So this is actually something I learned from Rachel Maddow. Okay. Rachel Maddow, to her credit, back in the day was great, and she taught me this term astroturfing. Okay. Because this is what at the time the Koch brothers guys were doing. They create, and they all do this. They create an organization or like a nonprofit, right? So like in that case, it was like Citizens for Tax Reform or something. I think that's Grover Cleveland or whatever. But like, the soda people did it recently. They're like Citizens for Drink Freedom or whatever. The government wants to regulate the kind of soda you can drink, aka the government wants to pull subsidies from soft drinks. They're like, you need to tell your congressman I can have whatever soda I want. Call your So this is what this is. This is Citizens for a Safe and Healthy Texas. And I have no idea who funds this, but this is what it says. Protecting families and communities through education, prevention, and awareness of marijuana and harmful drug legalization efforts. Resources, join us, contact us. Call to action. I want to know who funds them. Is it all rights reserved? Resources. If we go to donate, Stars and Stripes United Inc. Okay. What's that? We're doing a little detective work today. Okay, let's look at this. Stars and Stripes United Inc. Okay. McKinney, Texas. Corporation is a nonprofit public benefit corporation. So this Stars and Stripes United right here, I was trying to figure out where they come from. I don't want to bore you with my detective work here, but THC harm stories, facts, presentations, donate. I thought maybe donate would give us in Texas Republican Convention. Don't California, Texas with THC and other drugs. Okay. This right here. So I'm going to have to look into this. I am not going to go find out probably today who funds this, but Citizens for a Safe and Healthy. I'll do some research and get back to you on this. However, this right here was my theory. Texas Republican Convention, don't California, Texas with THC and other drugs. My theory behind why they're doing this is because Austin is getting too California. Too much of Hollywood has moved to Austin and LA'd it up. That's the problem that Texas is having right now. They don't like that. It's used to be whiskey and cigarettes, and now it's weed and White Claw or whatever you want, whatever you want to say. But that was my theory, and it's funny that they have a call to action section on their site that's like, "Don't California up Texas," because unfortunately for Texas, a lot of now Texas has a burgeoning comedy scene and a burgeoning, film scene and everything. And so no one can afford to live in Hollywood anymore. You're going to get that element, guys. So that's kind of what my spidey senses perked up on when I read this article. Let's finish it up though. So I'm gonna bookmark that. We're gonna get back to Citizens for a Safe and Healthy Texas and what that is. The temporary injunction blocked the enforcement. So we did already read that of DHS in 2021 rule. All the case played out, allowing businesses to expand beyond Delta 9 products and build a market around Delta 8 and other intoxicating hemp variants. After the Supreme Court reversed that injunction, DSHS reinstated the old definitions, which are set to take effect July 31st. This is not a good thing for the industry. It's difficult to understand and lacks clarity, said Cynthia Cabrera, the chief strategy officer at Hometown Hero. While Hometown Hero does not have plans to challenge the state Supreme Court decision, Cabrera said 2 businesses are preparing lawsuits. Adams said she also wants to see Delta 9 ultimately banned. We want the sale of products out of our Texas neighborhoods. I got to find out who funds that organization. That's the story here, is who funds Citizens for a Healthy, Safe and Healthy Texas. That's my homework. What will happen to those? If you know something, put it in the comments, or please. What will happen to those caught with illegal THC products? Well, Jim, once THC variants are classified as a Schedule 1 drug, possession of illegal THC products will be treated as a state jail felony, which carries a punishment of 180 days to 2 years in prison and fines of up to $10,000, say cannabis experts. Now that we're criminalizing these substances that have been federally legal for the past 5 or 6 years, we're now creating a new pipeline for people to go to prison, like that black dude was saying that I showed earlier, and spend millions of dollars within the legal system and just further disenfranchise a lot of people, said Mitchell. Industry advocates say criminalizing THC products will only push consumers forward toward unregulated and more expensive options. Like I said, it's going to create a new black market boom. You're going to have cartel people running weed across the border into Texas for the black market. And I think that's a big part of it. It makes me wonder how intertwined cartels are with Texas politics, because they are. And I'm sure they would support, maybe they fund that organization, Texans for a Healthy Families or whatever. Anyhow, let's keep going here. We're almost done. So, what does the reclassification mean for the hemp industry? The July 31st ban will reshape Texas's hemp industry, Todd said. Cannabis experts estimate the reclassification could take 60 to 90% of THC products out of circulation. Todd says some other businesses will have to pull most of their THC products off the shelves, causing them to shut down. It's going to do irreparable harm, said Mark Bordas, executive director of Texas Hemp Business Council. In anticipation of this ban, some businesses have already begun transitioning away from Delta 8 and THCA like he has, said AJ Vasquez, owner of Doobie's Smoking Depot in Austin. That's more like it. That's the type of business name I was looking for in this article right there. Doobie's Smoking Depot in Austin. Doobie's is a good place. Hopefully they play the Doobie Brothers. But he still anticipates that his sales will take a 25% hit. If they are caught selling the banned substances, businesses could lose their consumable hemp licenses, face fines of up to $10,000 per violation, and be criminally charged with manufacturing or distributing a Schedule 1 substance, said Mitchell with ATX Organics. He said about 50% of his store's products will be removed from their shelves, and he predicts that stores don't focus on natural THC will probably have to remove somewhere between 75 and 90% of their product. There are about 14,000 retail stores statewide that are licensed to sell consumable hemp, according to the Department of State Health Services. So this could also be them lobbying for this. I saw this in California. A lot of the big business lobbies back in the day, or the medical dispensaries, fought the recreational legalization because they're like, we have a domination of the market as medical dispensaries. So you also have that dynamic at play too. And pot business is every bit as ruthless and cutthroat as any other form of business. They will fight you in any way they can and do dirty, underhanded shit like that. So it's definitely a possibility too. But let's keep going, because that's the end of the story. And this is one of the things I wanted to talk about now that we're done with the story here, is how there's a lot of this anti-weed sentiment going around. And, it makes me wonder, I've seen all these these stories about paid influence campaigns, it makes me wonder how much of this is paid for again by the, alcohol and tobacco lobbies. This one, take a wild guess which lobby paid for this one. Hard times create nicotine men. Nicotine men create good times. Good times create weed guys. Weed guys create hard times. Kalshi just in. Americans now smoke more weed than cigarettes. Paid ads. The Kalshi ad is paid for. I just told this guy he sucks dick for coke, though. And this is what I'm talking about right here. This anti-weed sentiment makes a lot more sense when it's a paid partnership with this guy who's like, this was not a good trade. Maybe not for you. Maybe not for the people who sell lung cancer medication or chemotherapy. So interesting to note, retweeting a paid partnership with Kalshi. But here is the reality of the situation. And this comes from my boy, Ryan Sullivan here. He says, the benefits of nationally legalizing marijuana are staggering. If it wasn't for the hit job of tobacco and ridiculous dogmas, we could literally kickstart the economy and recover from the COVID mess way faster. As a libertarian, I should never promote taxes, but if I had to concede for the better of mankind, this would be my model. I think that is absolutely plausible. Because, yeah, I mean, you could see what Colorado did with it, for example. California is not a good example to look at because they're just sloppy with their money in general, and it's very corrupt there. But Colorado's legalization brought in a lot of money for schooling and city projects. So the thing about pot too is it's grown locally. In Albuquerque, all the best pot is grown locally. I don't even think that they ship it in. In LA, everyone grows. Like, there's one of the best things about California is the medical pot market there. And I remember, and I've probably said this on the show before, but a good friend of mine who I used to buy weed from before it became legal, he was a guy who would go over to Amsterdam for the Cannabis Cup, and he straight up told me, he's like, I'll take LA medical bud over Cannabis Cup any day of the week. Southern California and the Bay Area, LA, Orange County, San Diego, and San Francisco, Oakland and San Francisco before Southern California too. They had the lockdown on pot. Oakland and San Francisco had the first medical dispensary, I think, in the country too. So, the Bay Area was way on top of it. And then, of course, you got Pacific Northwest, Seattle, Oregon, who I believe legalized even before LA did. So, but this anti-cannabis shit is dumb for a lot of reasons. And in the case of Texas, that there's lobbies behind it. And that's why I am going to find out who this is. The Citizens for a Safe and Healthy Texas. If you have any knowledge on that organization, I went straight to the donate page too. And the donations go to a company called Stars and Stripes United, Inc. So this is some kind of like PAC or some kind of political nonprofit that is having money funneled into it by anti-weed organizations or anti-weed companies that have seen their market share affected by the legalization of marijuana. Definitely changes a lot of things, a lot of dynamics. So let's talk about one of my heroes, Max Blumenthal. And we're nearing up on 2 hours, so we're going to try to hustle through these last couple segments for you. I had a really killer ratio this week on the Atlantic, and it's not over yet, but it's already a pretty devastating one. First of all, the fact that their post, look at the amount of views their post has. 679,000 views. My post has 8,229, but their post has 61 likes after over 500,000 views. almost 750,000 views, and they got 61 likes on their post. That's crazy. So what does The Atlantic have to say about the heroic Max Blumenthal here? The commentator, Max Blumenthal, has become part of an ignominious tradition of Americans who, out of alienation from their own country, show an admiration for distant authoritarian lands, Jay Kirchik argues. Oh my God. The American commentator making excuses for Iran. So I said, Max Blumenthal does actual journalism, something totally foreign to the highly credentialed corporate ass suckers at a publication like The Atlantic. And I'm just going to go ahead and give myself the applause here, because I think that's probably the best way to sum up The Atlantic. And I've made this argument several times, but America doesn't even know what journalism is anymore, because our journalistic system has been so co-opted and woven in as part of the government at this point. No one in our government ever gets combative interviews from anyone, whether they're Republican or Democrat. And when they do, they freak out and don't talk to those people anymore. They cut off their access. So literally the only way you can get Congress people on your show is to be an access journalist and suck ass to these, powerful people to get them on your shows. That's why when you see, like, as much as I like Drop Site News, for example, Ryan Grimm and those guys still interview Congress people. So I have a healthy sense of skepticism for them. They do good work sometimes. Don't get me wrong. I think they do a lot of great work, but I'm also like, same with Breaking Points, Crystal Ball. I've long been very skeptical of Crystal Ball, especially after what went down with Jimmy Dore a couple years ago and the COVID stuff and all that. But, it's like, yeah, Crystal Ball has some good takes sometimes. But she's too like, all these people take money from the DNC. Kyle Kulinski and Crystal Ball are definitely on the payroll of the DNC. And, they'll be like, oh, no, we're not. No, we totally are. It's like, no, the DNC pays like a marketing agency that pays you fuckers. We know how this works. You all do it. And that's fine. I'm not even mad about it. Like, do your thing. I am jealous that I don't get that kind of money, but I'm also not willing to compromise my values and say things I don't believe for money. So I honestly, money for doing that isn't even worth it to me. I think you're shallow and fake if you do that anyway. I'd rather be poor and honest than rich and fake. That's probably why I'm not rich. So anyway, let's keep going. Here is basically why I hate The Atlantic, because this is the owner of The Atlantic, Lorene Powell Jobs. Both these women looking pretty stacked, honestly, for their age group. But you got to give them credit there. Ghislaine Maxwell has a pretty killer body, but the pixie cut and the insane murderer eyes don't do her any justice in this photo. But she's definitely got the rack dominance over Steve Jobs' widow here. Although both women are very attractive older women, I must admit. This guy says, Atlantic, the anti-Zionist Jew Max Blumenthal is part of an ignominious tradition of Americans who, out of alienation with their Lorene Powell Jobs owner. So this guy just posted, and this was translated from a different language, but from Spanish. He posted this just to say, hey, you guys, your publication is owned by this lady. So the idea that you have any moral high ground to get up on a pedestal and point down at Max Blumenthal is laughable at best. So Max is accurately reporting on Iran while the corporate press is running cover for the Trump administration, The Atlantic. And so they have to go at Max for a reason. And this, of course, comes after he was recently detained on his return home and had his devices confiscated by the government. And now he is going through a lawsuit for that. And so I hope he prevails in that lawsuit, because Max is a great journalist. And this is also, it's going to set a precedent for the future. So last note of business here, last order of business. Here's James Kirchik again. Last week at Busboy and Poets, Max Blumenthal berated 2 Iranian exiles as Persian gusanas, worms, called Alinejad Masih a CIA asset and compared the late Ayatollah Ali Khamenei to the Pope. And I said, by berated, you mean correctly addressed by their proper title, because that's exactly what he did. But again, this is this American exceptionalism masquerading as journalism. A real journalist doesn't run cover for the United States government, right? Like, this guy is basically like, oh, Max Blumenthal saying bad things about the government. Oh, did you hear, you guys? Max Blumenthal has said the U.S. government is bad. 5 minutes ago, this guy's like, Trump is a disaster, the worst thing ever for America. Max Blumenthal's like, hey, the Iran war, like, it's not a good idea. Like, these people actually really didn't attack us or anything, much like Iraq didn't attack us, much like Afghanistan didn't even attack us. But what are we going to do about it? I ask you, what are we going to do about it? So this guy who wrote this smear piece on Max, you know, he knows that Alinejad Masih is a paid U.S. asset who takes money from USA, like it's like a USAID or NGO, like National Endowment for Democracy, to come over here and be anti-Iranian and convince America. Just like, what's the girl's name they had testify for the Iraq stuff, Nyala or something, the fake testimony. They do this every time. And smart Americans who have, you know, maybe been around for a minute and seen this, younger Americans ain't buying it either. That's the good part. That's the great part. Like, they didn't even have to live through the Iraq war to know that all this slop they're serving up is slop. So I think the younger generation doesn't get enough credit for being smarter than they are. The Charlie Kirk thing is a good example of this, and Candace kind of touched on this, which is a good segue into our next segment about Candace Owens. But Candace made this point about how marketing doesn't work anymore. And I think that is so real. And the reality is it's because of the proliferation of streaming and because of how, you know, terminally online everyone is. Everyone knows when you're faking it. That's why podcasts have taken off over shows like Jimmy Kimmel and Stephen Colbert. And I think Jimmy Kimmel and his writers, man, they had a great run. Jimmy Kimmel had some of the funniest sketches. I don't know if you remember when they did the viral thing where the girl was like twerking on the wall and like fell down and knocked the candle over and started a fire. They totally made that and it looked legit and people were sharing it. You know, like Jimmy Kimmel's they did some really great stuff. Same with Daily Show, all these shows. Stephen Colbert, when he was on comedy, Stephen Colbert sucked once he took over for David Letterman, but all these guys had great runs. But now you watch those shows and you're like, this is so like stiff and scripted, you know, versus the new landscape where we can just turn on a camera and talk to each other like this at any given moment, and anyone can do it. And if you can talk and form a coherent thought and actually, you know, speak rationally, you can build an audience pretty easily on these platforms. You know, look at people like Nick Fuentes, people like Lex Friedman have an audience. But again, it's like the reason those guys have an audience, the reason Joe Rogan has an audience is because of the interviews he does. You know, it's not Joe Rogan's audience. 90% of them ain't there for Joe Rogan. They're there to listen to the guest. Anyway, moving on, speaking to charisma and on-air personality and just like raw, you know, integrity. Candace Owens. I love Candace Owens, and you know, I've been in trouble recently online. I love this look. I love my ex-wife had that look. That's the like, you're full of shit look. That's the I fucking buy in this look. I love that look. She's like, you know, this is bullshit. You can see it in her eyes. She's like, what the fuck are you saying to me? And I love Candace for this. I think the thing I love about Candace is just that like spunky kind of confidence that she has. And she's so well spoken and and intelligent, but then she has that confidence behind it that just makes it makes it entertaining to watch. It makes her a worthwhile listen. And also, I think, again, I've said this many times, there's a lot I disagree with Candace on, but I do think that based on, listening to her speak, she does believe what she's saying, and she is, trying to be a good person or like ask questions and figure things out, So I had this tweet recently in response to these. Basically, what's going on right now is people are piling up to attack Candace Owens because she's asking questions. And the thing that drives me the most nuts about this and the people that are kind of like coming at her is they have no good reason to be attacking her or like trying to poke holes in what she's doing, because she's not claiming to know anything. She's asking questions. And if you can poke a hole in one of her assertions, good. That knocks that assertion down. She's doing an investigation. You're not going to be right when you're doing an investigation 100% of the time. You're going to theorize, you're going to postulate, you're going to find new evidence, you're going to build on different, possibilities. It's like playing the game Clue. Oh, maybe it was Colonel Mustard with the wrench in the study or whatever, So recently, I had to chime in on some people I had to chime in White Knight for Candace, which, she doesn't need it. She can handle herself. But this guy said Candace was asking Tyler Robinson's lawyers to reach out. Instead, they made fun of the conspiracies and didn't want a video shown in court because of the conspiracies. Let me guess, y'all going to say they're in on it too. So this is one of the paid assholes who gets paid to say dumb shit like this that has no foundation in reality. And I feel bad for these. I mean, I don't feel bad for these people because they're getting a lot of money to say things that they don't believe. But I said, if Candace was actually totally off base and dead wrong, everyone would just ignore her and the court case would proceed with Tyler's conviction. The fact all you clowns are constantly sliming her proves she's onto something. Your desperation is very visible. And so people, there's a long list of people responding to me and calling me all kinds of names for that. But I think that, to me, sums it up. And I'm going to show you why. Because there are just a bunch of ridiculous attempts being made to discredit what Candace is doing, which is basically just asking questions about what's going on. So it's this started for me. And she says, huge HIPAA violation for UVU hospital. Whoever sent her this screenshot of the computer at the hospital is in huge trouble. This is a very big HIPAA violation. We're talking huge. As a person that has worked in this field with access to medical records, the hospital will be and has the capabilities to see who was in and what accounts and when at what time. You will never get another job in this line of work again. And I said, new clown talking point just dropped, I see. Well, this is also, I think, a dead issue at this point. These people that are like, oh, we're going to end your career because you did something we don't agree with. There are too many of us now to fight back against this. It ain't going to work anymore. It ain't going to last. It might still work a little bit here and there, but eventually the torches and the pitchforks are going to come out. But I want to dive into this a little bit because this is just to show you an example of how pathetic and weak the arguments that these people have are. So let's start by talking about UVU Hospital, because she says something about UVU Hospital here, and there is no such thing as UVU Hospital. And in the process of talking about this, Candace has talked a lot about Timpanogos. Now, I'm from this area. I know this area very well. I know Orem Provo very well. And this is what's suspicious. This is the most, in my opinion, this is one of the most suspicious things about this. Where Utah Valley Hospital is located, I wonder if I could show you. So she says UVU Hospital. There's no such thing as UVU Hospital. Where Utah Valley University is located is right kind of like on the south end of Orem, the southwest end of Orem, Utah. and it's right across this kind of diagonal, this university diagonal from Provo. And right as you go down this diagonal is what's called Utah Valley Hospital, not UVU Hospital, just Utah Valley Hospital. My grandmother died at that hospital. My grandmother worked at that hospital. So I know exactly. That is the closest hospital to UVU, Utah Valley University, is Utah Valley Hospital. That's the closest hospital. Timpanogos Hospital is across town. Like it's much further away than if you just go shoot across the diagonal to where Utah Valley Hospital is. So right off the bat, you have this weird dynamic, and Candace went into this on her show, and I'll go watch her show, and she explains in detail why this is suspicious. But I'm just pointing out, just from a simple perspective of someone who grew up in that town, and can tell you that if I was to hurt myself at UVU, I would be rushed to Utah Valley Hospital, which is right down the diagonal in Provo from Utah Valley University, which is on the south edge of Orem, right next to Provo, versus Timpanogos Hospital, which I moved away from Utah in the late 90s, and Timpanogos Hospital was probably built after I moved. Okay, let me look on the map here. Where is so Timpanogos Regional Hospital? I want to look at this real quick. Is in Orem, 750 west, 800 north. Okay. So Timpanogos Hospital is on 800 north and 800 west. So I do remember that hospital. I always thought that was Orem Hospital, but whatever the case, that is still. So I just to look, let me look at Utah Valley Regional. Yeah, Utah Valley Regional Hospital is literally right across the freeway. Not even across the freeway from Utah Valley University. Anyway, I'm getting on a sidebar here. I want to talk about this guy because this is the thing that I thought was hilarious about this whole thing, is that these people think that this is some big privacy violation. So let me show you this real quick. This guy, this guy's whole entire, persona is based on Candace Owens blocked me. And I just found this guy, in the process of responding to some of this stuff. So he says, Candace Owens did share Charlie Kirk's medical number. Do not let her just silently edit it out. She needs to apologize for this. I said, oh my God, she shared an obscure number that is completely useless unless you work at the hospital that uses this filing system. This is what these people are trying to paint as some massive like HIPAA violation that she showed. She blurred everything out except like a number. And then I think she went back and blurred it out after the fact because there's like a number on there that showed. And so what I was pointing out is that, man, you guys are getting pathetic. Also, none of the clowns acting like this is news cared when Erica used Charlie's corpse for an Instagram photo op. Why aren't you questioning why Kirk had a medical record at another hospital before he was shot? That's the thing. So the thing that Candace covered in her show and why these clowns are trying to like act like she did something wrong is she pointed out how what I just said, his records were at Utah Valley Regional Hospital, which is the closest hospital to UVU. Meanwhile, they took him to Timpanogos Hospital. So they had to transfer. Candace was pointing out how it's weird that his medical records were already at Utah Valley Regional Hospital, but they had to transfer them to Timpanogos. Now, that could simply be because they sent the medical records to the hospital they thought they would go to because they were the closest, and the guys were in a panic, and they went to they were just like, where do we go? Oh, Timpanogos. And listen, they may even be similar distances apart, but I would think, as being someone who knows that area, who grew up in Orem, Utah, like that's literally where I'm from. I was born at Utah Valley Regional Medical Center. That's where you would shoot from UVU if you had a medical emergency. An ambulance, I think, would take you straight across the diagonal, right up Center Street, down into Provo, and right there after you go across this diagonal is Utah Valley Regional Medical Center. And there's some major traffic lights between that, but it's still the fastest, I would think. And maybe I'm wrong about this, but again, what these people are freaking out about exposes that they have no real argument. And so I want to show you Blake Neff next. And this is how these people are. They think you're stupid. This is how bad this guy is at playing dumb. So Candace says, interesting comments coming in regarding the medical examiner's report on Charlie. Things are certainly going to get interesting. This guy says, I'm a surgeon. Based on medical examiner's report, the trajectory from the roof is not possible. Charlie was hit in the low neck. The medical examiner's report said much of this cervical spine was traumatically gone. At the L side was obliterated. To have affected up to C2, it would have been an upward trajectory from a point of entry on the neck. I heard a podcaster say Charlie was also wearing a Rode transmitter at his waist. If this had a shape charge, the trajectory would make sense for entering the low neck and hitting his cervical spine. So what Blake here says in response to this kind of crazy assessment about how, based on the injuries Charlie received, there's no way he was shot from above, is what that essentially says. This is Blake's response to that. So this is where we're going next, that Charlie had a bomb inside of him. A bomb inside of him. So this is what nefarious people do when they're guilty. This guy is, and allegedly, I'm going to say, like, I can't, he's entitled to a court, but like, that is so suspicious that he's playing that drum. Yeah, Charlie had a bomb inside of him. That's what we think. It's a desperate attempt to try to brush off the argument by pretending you think it's something dumber than it is, because it's not dumb at all. And if he read this, he knows he's being stupid. I wonder why the defense team didn't raise anything about that at the hearing. Oh, they will. They will. And I said, you're not very good at pretending to be dumb. Jimmy said, where were you on 910? Why did you lie about staying in Orem? Why were you driving a Dodge Charger? Why do you keep lying about everything? Jimmy. And then last but not least, you have one of my favorite online personalities as of late, the accurately named Matt Tardio. Every time I see this guy post, and if you follow me on Twitter, you've probably seen it, I just reply, and if someone sharing his post, I just reply and hit. Fun fact, Tardio is actually Spanish for the retard. Don't be surprised when Candace has her computer and all her electronics seized. So again, this is a red flag right here. People celebrating that lawfare tactics, like using authoritarian government to arrest your intellectual opponents, people that have a difference of opinion, who are your political opponents, really. We've been lowered to that level where a guy like this, and honestly, this is beta male behavior. This is very like weak, limp-wristed, spineless jellyfish type bitch shit to celebrate someone being authoritarianly arrested or searched. I say the same thing about lawsuits. There's these like absolute cunts, and that's the most accurately descriptive word to describe this behavior. celebrating lawsuits, if you celebrate people being sued, you're a cunt. I'm sorry. Like, unless it's for something that's very serious, like a vaccine injury. But just this like frivolous, I'm yay, someone's getting frivolously sued. Woo! I have to go back. Frivolous lawsuits. Woo! Anyway, Matt Tardio and his counterparts in the Anti-Candace movement can suck it. Don't be surprised when someone shuts off the bot farms and no one listens to your show anymore or watches your show or whatever you're doing. I may have a small audience, but it's a real audience. I know that much. All right, we got a couple more stories for you. Actually, we have one more story for you, and then we're going to close out with a funny thing about our president. And this is actually the story kind of I've most wanted to talk about today, and that is the trial of Anthony Fauci, who's seen here writing in his diary. I have to admit that this guy having a diary and the timing of this release and hearing is definitely suspicious. It definitely screams distraction psyop to me, because they're not going to arrest this guy. He already had a blanket pardon, I believe. But let's get into it, because there are still, like it or not, a lot of these people out there.
Ain't that America? You and me. Ain't that America?
Been a while since I pulled that one out. But I want to start with breaking news. A recent argument that RFK Jr. had with yours and my favorite news anchor, Dana Bash. Let's get into it. Let's see what yours and my hero, RFK Jr. had to say about it. I had to reset my screen share because it was not going to play the audio for you. Hopefully this is telling the truth to the American.
I see my job as telling the truth, and the truth is that there is study after study after study. It's one of the most studied things out there in science, and it is
like a parrot. You're repeating
So are
it
you.
like a parrot.
So
I've
are you.
actually read the science.
Okay, first of all, just to give you some perspective here. They're freaking out about measles, okay? Now, first of all, okay, measles, yeah, it's a sickness. How many people die from measles? Like, it's like chicken pox, okay? It's like one of those things, like when you're a kid, you might get the measles. Yeah, it sucks if people are getting it, but a vaccine's not like the answer, and it's not this like magical fix for it. And so this like really pharma-driven hype over measles coming back is designed to attack RFK with. And they've done this from day one because it's one of the things that they have like some little kernel of truth to it, and they can like use it to like hyperinflate fear in people. But let's listen to what RFK says, because this is actually him at his best. And a lot of people hate RFK, and to those people, I'm like, whatever, fine. It's not like I'm his favorite stan or anything. However, I am happy that people like him are getting into government who question the narrative on some level. Look, am I happy that he's a raging Zionist? Fucking no. But all of them are. I've made this argument several times. Same with Tulsi Gabbard. It's like, look, Tulsi Gabbard is bad. But also she was one of the few people who had the integrity to stand up to the DNC. Also, she was against, vocally against the forever wars until she had to be for them in the Trump administration. But, she was forced into resignation eventually. But again, it's like, there's this Goldilocks mentality that people have in politics. Well, that guy did or said something that I don't like, so his porridge is too cold for me. On to the next. And it's like, dude, you're never going to get anywhere if that's how you work in politics. So look, RFK Jr. might have some nutty habits. He might say some dumb things sometimes. He might post some dumb pictures on social media that I think are ridiculous and stupid, but this is good. So let's enjoy it.
You don't want to. You don't want to
here and debate this.
So I'm not debating this.
Of course you are.
No, because I'm not.
All you know how to do is repeat things that people told you and say, trust the experts. That's what you did during COVID. Now we know that Anthony Fauci, who was the expert, was lying about everything, about masks, about the social distancing, about natural immunity, about the transmission from the vaccine, about the source of COVID. He was lying, and you were punishing people for not trusting the experts.
For not trusting the experts. Oh, that's what I do want to say this too. He might as well be arguing directly with pharma companies right here because she is employed by pharma. This woman is a pharma employee. Anyone who works in corporate news is a pharma employee. 75%, maybe more now, of their ad budget that keeps their station on the air comes from pharma. So this is why she's making the argument she's making, not because she has any real compassion for people who got COVID or whatever, any of the shit that she's pretending to care about.
And now you're rolling out the experts again to talk about something that you have no personal knowledge of.
Okay, well, guess what? That is my job, to talk to people.
Your job is to
Am I allowed to talk?
the American
Yes,
public.
yes. And my job
And
is
to
to
be-
get as
and
much
to-
information as I
and to
can. And what we
maintain
were doing,
a posture
what we were
of
doing,
fear, skepticism
what we
for
were
government
doing
authority.
in COVID and still with regard to these vaccines is getting the best information, the best science.
Seriously, I have to say too, cheers to RFK for doing this, because you know what they're going to do with this footage. He looks unhinged. He's unhinged. And he sounds crazy because he's like, God, you people. He's got this like scratchy, shitty voice. And so it's like, he can't win for losing, because if he went on here and just was like, yeah, whatever, everyone else would be like, you fucking fake, So, but doing this, all the usual suspects are going to be like, see, RFK Jr. is terrible. He's unhinged, whatever. No, he's actually 100% correct. And most people that see this footage will applaud him for it. But let him finish.
That we can.
Actually, that's the end of it. Watch the full clip. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. But let's get into it. So to really start, post that breaking RFK Jr. news, I want to show you this Matt Orfalea trip down memory lane here, because no one does it better than Matt Orfalea when it comes to supercuts. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to go back in time. We're going to remember the pandemic. Remembering the pandemic.
Preventing infection. Meta-analysis studies show that, contrary to what we thought, masks really do work in preventing infection.
No doubt.
So no doubt.
So when you find out you were wrong, you don't double down.
People should not be walking around with masks.
You're sure of it, because people are listening really closely to this.
Right now, people should not be walking. There's no reason to be walking around with a mask. Right now, the message is the vaccines are very effective in preventing serious disease. So the data are very, very clear that you need a booster. The nature of those viruses that were studied were evolutionarily so far distant from what turned out to be SARS-CoV-2 that no matter what you did with those viruses, you would not be able to do that. Obviously, there are two possibilities that are being entertained, and I think we need to keep a completely open mind until we have definitive proof.
Dr. Fauci, did you delete any emails or records related to the Wuhan lab or the origins of the virus?
No, I did not. I am very happy to testify before any congressional oversight committee. I have nothing to hide. On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution. I have not been misleading the American public under any circumstances.
So, not the biggest fan of Rand Paul, especially lately, but cheers to him for helming this. And he pulled up with Fauci's diary, which again, I think is suspicious, but let's get into this. Read this Fauci diary entry closely. Officials would not admit the vaccine was not stopping spread because it might weaken the legal case for mandates. That is not science. That is a cover-up to justify coercion. August 13th, 2022. Here is in addition, it would undermine the DOJ's efforts at mandates for vaccines under certain circumstances. So this is leaked or unclassified information that kind of proves he was lying the whole time. And what are you going to do? Emerald here said this. She said, there's an awkward silence in America right now because the vaccinated have started to realize they took health advice from satanic pedophiles. And I said, there's still a lot of these people, though. Also want you to remember heroes because, we spend a lot of time talking about the villains in the stories. These stories also have heroes, and this is one of those heroes. Now, I want to start by saying this is how scummy the pro-pharma crowd is. The person who retweeted this, he died. Readers added context they thought people might want to know. The person in the video is identified as Nathan Ward. At this time, there's zero evidence that he has died. So never forget this brave American who told Fauci and I think it's the mayor of Baltimore, or the mayor of one of those cities, maybe the governor of Maryland.
The people in America are not settled with the information that's been given to us right now. So I'm not going to be lining up taking a shot on a vaccination for something that wasn't clear in the first place. And then you all create a shot in miraculous time. It takes years.
You all create a shot. I just look at that. That face says more than 1,000 words could say. That's a face. She's like, oh my God, what is he saying? It's like she's like disgusted, but also like saddened, but also like worried that this is being filmed, and it's all encapsulated in that shot. Good work, cameraman, PBS cameraman.
That wasn't clear in the first place. And then you all create a shot in miraculous time. It takes years to create vaccination.
Well, it used to take years.
Okay,
you know how many years were invested in this approach? About 20 years of science to get us to be able to do it.
20 years is not enough. And 9 months is definitely not enough for nobody to be taking no vaccination that you all came up with.
The only reason I'm talking to you right now, as close as we are, is that I've been vaccinated.
Right.
But if it allows thousands of people like you don't get vaccinated, you're going to let this virus continue to percolate in this country and in this world.
Something like the common flu then, right?
And not
it's
like
much
the
more
common
serious than the flu.
Well, the flu kills a lot of people annually too.
You know how many people died of the flu the last year? I mean, not this year, virtually none, but the previous year, about 20 to 30,000. You know how many people have died from COVID-19 in the United States? 600,000 Americans.
Well, the number that you all giving that died, that's once again, that's you all's number.
You gonna pass?
Yeah,
this guy is such a fucking gangster. I love this guy so much. This guy is every American. He's like, again, that's y'all's fucking number. Let's watch that again. That's such a great answer. That's your number.
Well, the number that you all giving that died, that's once again, that's you all's number.
You gonna pass?
Yeah, definitely.
All right.
Because when you start talking about paying people to get vaccinated, when you start talking about incentivizing things to get people vaccinated, there's something else going on with that. Something else going on.
It is something going on with
something
it.
else.
You're right. But I'm like millions of people like.
What a fucking incredible gangster that man is. Street smarts over book smarts. Yeah, something ain't spelling right in Dodge here, people. And then they're finally like, okay, let's get out of here. I can't believe that they put this footage out. Like, I'm surprised that this made the light of day. Credit to them at least for letting it see the light of day, because it's, But we also have to remember to, aside from the heroes and the villains of the pandemic, we have to remember the comedy. Comedy like this. Sure, Anthony Fauci was bad, but without him, we'd never have this.
Check, get it straight check. Girl, you look good, want you vax that thing up. You's a handsome young brother, want you vax that thing up. Dating real life, you need to vax that thing up. Feeling freaky all night, you need to
Vax that thing.
up.
Juvenile. What's this?
I got to be well. Think it's time we start. Children, what's that sound?
Who is this? Oh my God, that's so terrible. I didn't even see this one. And then, of course, this was one of my favorite. This had to be one of my favorite tweets from Danny Polishuk here. Hold on, let me reshare this so we can all share in the joy of this young man and his beautiful singing.
Dr. Fauci, give us vaccines. Help all the people who have been quarantined. We'll wear our masks and we'll have to stay distant.
Okay. You've had enough of that. I'm gonna give you a couple minutes to go throw up now before we move on to the next part of this, but the next piece of tape I have for you. So I don't know if you watched the hearing. Most people didn't. You've probably already seen news from it because I only do the show once a week. And this was a while ago, a few days ago, earlier in the week. But this is from the Associate Press. Dr. Anthony Fauci on Wednesday repeatedly invoked the Fifth Amendment and declined to answer dozens of questions from senators in a Republican-led committee hearing about his handling of the COVID-19 pandemic. I love how they sliced this in here. A Republican-led committee. The scientist who helped lead the nation's COVID-19 response was subpoenaed to testify under oath by Republican Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky. Fauci declined to answer more than 100 times, injecting new drama into partisan divides that have festered for years about COVID-19's origins and handling of the pandemic.
Declined to answer. Any reasonable person who has followed his unhinged obsession with me would readily come to the same conclusion. Therefore, although it pains me to do so because of the respect I have for the legislative branch of government and my decades-long record of cooperating with Congress, under the advice of my attorneys, I will invoke my right under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution to refrain from answering your questions.
This is that smug, like, I'm doing it for the good of the country shit that we talked about with Neera Tanden a while back, where, I think it was Mark Ames is like, you people ain't shit. Like Neera Tanden gloats over the corpse of her enemies while pretending, she's doing it for the sake of America type shit. That's what Fauci's doing here. But a lot of people recognized how similar Fauci's little testimony thing was to this old Dave Chappelle bit, which is hilarious.
You say, go ahead, ask me a question.
About the Fifth Amendment.
Good afternoon. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Accurate depiction of Fauci's actual testimony, and so accurate, in fact, that the AI people were able to put this together.
Be the fifth. 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Anything you say, 5. Go ahead, ask me a question. 5. Be the fifth.
Pretty brilliant. And it leads you to wonder, where does this go? Where does it actually go? What is it for? It's a show trial, clearly. It doesn't seem to have any real world, effects or goals, because again, the guy has a pardon. Now, I have read some interesting stuff about there being a potential that they could get him through state statutes or something like that. But do you really believe that they are going to do that? I don't think so. And where does this go? The thing the other thing about the COVID thing that just drives me insane is it was partisanized for a reason, because even today you're going to have the liberals will not let go of the anti-vax type stuff, and they're never going to, it doesn't matter what evidence you show them, they're never going to admit they were wrong about that stuff. There's just certain people you're just going to have to let them be wrong. And I'm thankful with the younger generation, like my kids, my daughter, for example. I think she gets it now. She was during the thing was very much on her mother's side of the equation, and her mother is very, even before COVID, was very like one of those people who's very psychosomatically ill all the time, And I noticed with COVID, a lot of the people that I know that are there's these kind of people, and no offense if you're one of these people, maybe look into it, but there's a certain type of person, and I have several friends who are this way, that they will use, I don't feel good, I feel sick, I have some obscure illness thing as their excuse to not engage with society and get out of their house or get out of bed. COVID amplified that to the nth degree. And with my ex-wife, she's one of those people who has been psychosomatically trained that she has to take pills for everything, and she has some kind of disorder. You have this and that disorder. Where with my daughter, I kind of convinced her, like, look, who's selling you the pills, sweetie? Like, let's think about this. And I'm thankful that my daughter is actually in a much better place. But we're going to see how this develops. My final word on this anyway is, I don't care what your partisan leanings are, trusting pharmaceutical industry, the pharmaceutical companies, and just a government bureaucrat like Fauci, who spent years and years in there and clearly profited from all of this. If you trust that, like you're not a bright person, whatsoever. You're very unthinking, very unskeptical, very what's a good word? Surface level, shallow. All those words apply to people who don't question this at all and just think that a bunch of anti-vaxxers hate Fauci. But let's close out today with something funny, guys. God, I've already been on for almost 3 hours now. I've really been going at it today. Let's talk about the funeral of Lindsey Graham, which, it doesn't get much funnier than a funeral for Lindsey Graham. But my boy JV Graz here, he chimed in here today with what I thought was a legendary, noteworthy tweet here. He said, "First time I've actually enjoyed seeing a video of Lindsey Graham."
I've never seen anything like it. I've seen a lot of bad ones. I've gone to a lot of hurricanes, a lot of tornadoes. I've never seen anything like this. This is...
So I brought our president into this because our president, our lovely beloved president, Donald Trump, the man who embodies the American values, the American aesthetic. And I mean that. I'm not joking when I say that. He really does embody American values and aesthetics. But this is just art. This is comedy art. I mean, watch. If you have, I'm sure you've seen this by now, but let's watch it. Let's enjoy it together. At full screen, it doesn't look quite as bad because he pats the coffin instead of, I thought he was knocking on it with a fist. But you can tell when is he knocking? No, see, from this angle, it looks, when I first looked at it, it looked like he was closed fist knocking on the casket, like, "Hey, Lindsey, knock, knock, who's there?" Which made me full belly laugh. Now that I look at it more closely, it's a little less comedic than I thought, but still funny. Still funny that he would even touch the casket. Let's watch it one more time. Genius stuff, Mr. President. All right. So our funny closeout video is this. And this, I think, is absolutely hilarious. If you've not seen this, this is an AI version of the Donald Trump Lindsey Graham casket knock. I don't want to ruin it for you. Let's get this to full screen. Hilarious. I applaud the AI creator for this one, the AI god. And with that, folks, we are at the end of our show today. Thank you for getting in line with me. Thank you for, I saw you in the comments today. Truth, haven't seen there in a minute. But props for showing up, my brother. Hope all is well out there. And, help you guys help me keep growing the channel. This past week, I posted 0 videos because I've been busy as fuck in my personal life, putting stuff together. But, I try to get stuff up. It's hit or miss with some of these videos too. And I always wonder, how much of it, the effort is actually worth it. I think I maybe should just focus on shorts. But every once in a while, I'll have a video like the one I did about Norm Finkelstein that goes crazy viral and gets like thousands of views. Every now and then something slips through the cracks. So, I'm going to keep at it. I'm going to keep at it. And I thank you guys again for joining me. What do I just gave you something funny to go out with. So I'm not even going to, I'm going to put in the extra effort tonight. I'm just going to sign off. Tell y'all thank you. And we'll see you live in person next week. Same time, same channel, 2:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, 1:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And if you haven't already, please like and subscribe and all that shit. Help me out, guys. The algorithm is not kind to folks like me, if you're unaware of that. Also, I'm going to be improving my shit. I'm going to be, you're going to be seeing me coming out with some more like flashy intros and better kind of segue pieces and stuff like that. The show is going to keep improving. So you will be rewarded for your continued attention. And I love y'all. Have a great rest of your weekend, and we'll see you next week.